Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another week of Birds of a Feather. And tonight, it is the annual Fantasy Football Special. We do this show every single year, right around this time, where we just dedicate the whole show, or at least most of it, to fantasy football. We talk about different topics, and we answer your questions and all of that. So thank you for joining us. We're very excited. I think it's the first time. I don't know if Kevin, you were on last year's fantasy football show, but if you weren't, welcome to the first one. And I know definitely Pete, it's your first one, so good to have you aboard. Definitely be excited to see what you have to say in terms of fantasy football, because I know that right before we went on, you were bragging about yourself, Mister playing for 12 years, got a few championships under your belt.
A
So
smidge.
let's see what wisdom you can bestow upon us. But I'm very excited. We don't do this often. We don't talk fantasy football often, but it'll be good to talk about it tonight. Chrome will be here. Don't worry, he's running behind because he's finishing up work late, but he will be on the show. So don't worry, he'll join us probably within the hour or whatnot. But for all those of you that are with us, thank you for joining us. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Twitch, the whole nine, all over social media, all over the internet. Our sponsors tonight are our doc, Paul Vidal of Specialized Physical Therapy LLC. Find them in Burlington, Cherry Hill, Princeton, specializedphysicaltherapy.com, and by Ambuck Services gutter cleaning for rotted board replacement, deck insulation and restoration, tree trimming, and other gutter-related services. Call 856-879-5530 or visit them at ambuckservices.com. Mention A2D and he will give you 20% off. Gentlemen, we got a lot of stuff on the docket today. A lot of, like we said, fantasy football related topics. We are going to start off talking a little bit about a philosophical, I don't know, I guess you could say philosophical approach, but debating which draft format you guys prefer. Are auction drafts better than snake drafts? Do you agree or disagree with that? We will also be talking about the different running back battles in training camp. Who will come out on top out of those battles? I know we got one in Indy, we got one in Detroit, so we'll cover all of them. We'll talk about the different handcuffs around the league, which running backs are worth your investment to take as a handcuff for a featured guy. Then we'll also talk about some high upside players that we believe are sleepers. Who can you get for cheap in an auction? Who can you get late in the late rounds of a snake draft that has upside to be a potential league winner for you? And then we'll also, to finish off our last topic, we'll talk about which is more important to a player's success. Is it talent or situation when it comes to fantasy football? And we will also, before we get into that real quick, because we got some training camp news, we want to hit on some training camp bites here and there. And one of the first things I know we want to really quick touch on, there's been a lot of reports lately, Mr. Kevin Godwin, of Cam Newton running away with the job in New England over Jared Stidham. Oh man, what do you got to say about? Well, before we get your opinion on that, I think we have a little surprise from our producer over on the ones and twos, Mr. Ryan Brodo. What do you got for us, Brodo?
Suck it up 1 year and go out and get somebody decent versus, suffering, signing, Cam just as a Band-Aid. That's not really a Patriot thing to do, just to, fill a gap. They'd rather have that next man up mentality. I don't think Cam is a locker room type guy, maybe a wardrobe guy, but the Patriots, they already got their hoodies. They don't need nobody there. So I don't think he's a guy to build anybody up, in a presence like they had within Brady or, you name it on the offense. So I just don't think it's, organizationally wise, the direction that they would want to go. What was the question again, sir?
Well, no question. Let's just. well, here I'll put it this way. I tagged you in a post before this, and you said you never said your quote was you never said Ken wasn't a fit for the Patriots, but the tape said otherwise.
So back to the question.
What do you say about that?
No,
it's not really a question. It's more like what is your take now?
To the question. So as far as everything that I'm hearing out of New England from the team and not from just reporters, watching snap counts, is that apparently Belichick wants to run a dual quarterback system and has given it a lot of thought. He has yet to say who is going to start. Throughout the first week, they actually split snaps pretty evenly between the three. So
remember how much fun you made of the Eagles when they took Jalen Hurts, and that's what our coach was saying. And now, my,
hey,
it literally happened to you. It's happened.
So
you.
I understand that, but I didn't denounce it like Eagles fans did.
What? You told us
like 50 a minute
4 weeks ago. If you have two quarterbacks, you have none. What are you talking about?
Oh Lord! Well, do you not just remember the 60-second clip that Brodo just showed? Did you just completely?
I do remember. I do remember it
vaguely.
As I mentioned, right. So, as far as being a locker room guy, everybody knows how New England works. It's very hush-hush. So when reports come out and say Cam's being a locker room guy and leading people, I don't necessarily know how strong that is because we've heard reports before saying that he's not and that he was a locker room issue within the Panthers. So is it something to, that they're putting a face onto? Is it changed because Cam doesn't have a starting spot? Necessarily. He didn't come in and, it wasn't basically given out the gate and said, oh, yeah, Cam's going to be our starter. So he has to be that presence. Is it because because he took so little money, he has to step up and earn that next paycheck? Who knows? But regardless, I stand by it. When I made the comment, I didn't think he was a locker room present. I mean, he could prove me wrong, as I seem to be most often when it comes to Cam Newton. And his presence within New England. But as far as I know, as of right now, there is no guaranteed week one starter. Belichick came out and said that they want to run a dual quarterback system. So whether that means 50-50 snaps, whether that means a Taysom Hill-esque role, I don't know. We'll have to see.
I can't. It just... every time, Kevin, you do this to yourself. You just do this to yourself. I don't know what to say because almost every week it's something new. Every week it's something new. I don't know what to say. That's just if you really believe that, Kevin, then you go believe that. Go ahead. Pete, you got anything?
No, I'm actually kind of proud of. He did say as he is most likely wrong with Cam, as he seems to be in regards to New England. But I mean, you believe anything Belichick wants you to.
If you look at the past, I mean, it's not like it's crazy to think that players haven't done it before. I mean, how many times have we seen bad eggs, go to winning-esque teams and be quiet, or the other way around, be an Antonio Brown and be more so quiet on the Steelers who were good in winning and then blow up going someplace else where there's not a head coach in place that is strong-armed and have a system down. So it could be done. I'm not saying that, I know exactly who Cam is, right? It's as I assumed hearing from the Panthers locker room, then moving to New England, can he change? Sure. I'm not saying that he hasn't or won't or wouldn't. Just at the time when the signing was made, he had not been a locker room guy, and he made a stink about people, calling him, saying that he needed to be humble. To me, that's not a locker room guy either, but things change. People change.
I mean, I don't know where else you can go and pick up an MVP off the street for 1 year for cheap. And Belichick found a way to do that. So I mean,
See, even then, that lends to not being necessarily a team-friendly person, right? I mean, if you go from being an MVP to being probably one of the cheapest quarterbacks on the market, there's got to be something there, whether it be
Yeah,
impact with the injury still,
yeah.
whether it
They're
be locker room presence.
I mean, they're rebuilding in Carolina. I mean, and plus he was hurt. I mean, if that shoulder's right, he's
I'm not saying necessarily with the Panthers. I'm saying in general in the QB market to have gone that cheap after being an MVP, caliber quarterback. What else was there that no one else was picking him up beforehand? I mean, we talked about teams like the Chargers being a fit, the Colts possibly. Yeah, there was other spots. It wasn't like it was just New England. New England just waited long enough and see where he fell.
Kevin, you do realize that he wasn't signed right away because of the friggin' pandemic, and he was hurt, and they couldn't do a physical, right? Like, that's why he wasn't signed.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you and say that was a majority of it. If I didn't see Tua drafted where he was and being projected so high,
He was
within the
cleared.
same reason.
He was cleared. He was cleared before the pandemic. He was cleared. What are you talking about? There was a guy who was cleared before, and there was a guy he was cleared after. That's different. He was cleared. Like, I don't know how he was cleared.
I don't remember.
Cleared. I like your reputation, Kev, when it comes to Cam and the Pats. This is very sketchy. You're like the anti-Scudero right now.
I don't remember Tua passing a physical prior to the draft.
He was cleared.
Thank you, Yusef.
Literally cleared.
Yeah, he was cleared.
I would check that.
Okay, Brodo, go.
I'm just saying. Going through the draft, there was many players.
I'll be back.
Right.
Yeah, go check it. I was about to check it, but we have to move on because this is a fantasy football special. We were only supposed to touch on this stuff real quick, but I want to move on to the other training camp news before we get into fantasy football talk. Real quick, though, I know one comment here was from Smelly Negroes. All right. He says Mahomes, CMC, Bell, Parker, Landry, Hooper, Edelman, 16 teams. Half PPR. Is that a good team? I mean, Mahomes and CMC as to start is already a great start, especially for a 16-team league. So I do like that combo. I'm
not sure how that even works.
Compare it, but that is how he pulled off CMC and Mahomes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, how did you get that in a 16-team league? No keepers?
My guess is that it's a dynasty-esque type league where he traded in. I know in dynasties you can trade draft picks. If that's the case,
or maybe Mahomes he got on the second tail end of the second round, and people just didn't. People maybe just went running back, wide receiver, didn't draft a quarterback until he did. I don't know. I'm trying to comprehend how I got CNC, but
I've already drafted in a few leagues, and in 90% of them, Mahomes and CMC are 1 and 2. So
yeah, that's it.
Okay.
It's everything I've seen, it's either one of them.
Yeah, I don't do snake drafts anymore. I do auction, but we're about to get into that for the first topic. But real quick, like I said, Pete, you were gonna say something real quick.
I mean, just kudos to you if that is true that the other 15 people in that league are just completely stupid. So congratulations on your championship in August.
Yeah.
Congratulations, sir.
Yes.
Job well done.
So the next thing I want to touch on, the release of Earl Thomas from the Ravens due to that flare up in camp. The core leaders from the Ravens had a meeting and told pretty much the coaches and the management in Baltimore that they don't want him there, and that there's a repetitive habit of him being late for meetings and all this other stuff. So he's gone from Baltimore. It was assumed that the Dallas Cowboys would be favorites and most likely suitors for Earl Thomas, but it was reported today that they're not pursuing him. So just give your quick thoughts on Earl Thomas's departure and where you think he will end up.
That is a cancer in the locker room, Kev. That is what you see. When somebody of that so-called talent, he is on the later end of his career, but he just got 4 years, $55 million last year from the Ravens. They just were the number one seed in the AFC. The team goes to the coaches and said, we don't need this guy. We don't want him here. And then his hometown team, who needs a safety, don't want him. That is where you call a locker room. That's what you call a locker room guy. That is a problem. And I'll be shocked to see who he goes to at this point. I mean, you talk about somebody who's ruined his reputation and on the fact that he's not the same Earl Thomas before the fracture of the leg. He's getting blown up on the field. When you're sitting there and you can make plays that probably other safeties in the league can't make, and you no longer can make those plays and you want to show up late to meetings, we're not willing to deal with that. And then you flare up in practice when you get beat on the play and you're blaming everybody else, throwing your helmet, throwing his fit. Guess what, sir? Here's the unemployment line.
Yeah, that would be my guess is he's going to start the season as a free agent. A team may pick him up later in the year if they're making a playoff push or if there's a big-time injury. But outside of that, I don't see anybody bringing him in prior to that. I think that 90% of teams are going to be set right now going through camp and aren't going to want a hothead in camp, especially right off the bat of the cut. So if anything, it's a later round or later in the season signing to me. Where he goes is going to depend on standings and injury.
I don't know where Earl Thomas is going to end up. I really don't. I thought it was going to be Dallas. I thought the Niners could take a flyer on him, but I've read reports, and the sentiment is that they won't. So I don't know. I am not sure where he's going to end up. Like you said, Pete, his reputation now is a hindrance to whomever is going to sign him.
Yeah.
The only thing I'm going to say is, does this now kind of solidify or sway your view on the Eagles draft pick of Brandon Graham over Earl Thomas? Or do you still think it was the bad decision to go with Brandon Graham? It's tough for me to say, knowing that Brandon Graham had the play of the game in the Super Bowl and that he's still on the team and was one of the core leaders, even though he was never like an all-pro or anything like that. That reliability, the leadership that he's brought to the team for all those years, it makes it tough, especially knowing like the cancer that Earl Thomas has become. It really, really makes it tough. So I don't know, but years ago we were all Philadelphia was all on board in terms of, hey, we should have drafted Earl Thomas. I was one of them, obviously. I'm sure you were too. But now when I think about it and everything that's transpired the past few seasons, I can't say that for sure. I'd have to really think about it. I don't know. And just that, to me, the fact that I'm reconsidering even, I think that speaks volumes to how much Earl Thomas's stock has gone down and how much Brandon Graham has proven to be as reliable of a player for the Eagles as he has been.
I mean, I hear your points there, but when we talk about being reliable, when you look at what Earl Thomas was when he was Earl Thomas, Brandon Graham has never given you that at his position, and that's just different. I mean, you think about Earl Thomas in this defense in his prime, how much ground he could have covered up, and the impact he could have had. That would have made our pass rush better. Not taking anything away from Brandon Graham, it does make it difficult when you look at the play he did make. But with that being said, I believe with Earl Thomas healthy and Earl Thomas at his peak, I mean, to me, Earl Thomas is a borderline Hall of Famer already, just because of what he did and who he was and how he played the game before he started to decline. So I can't say the same for Brandon Graham. I mean, that's just on the field. Off the field,
Yeah.
obviously, what we see now, probably definitely Brandon Graham. You know what I mean? What he's meant to the locker room, to be in that mentor role, to be that guy, to not coach, but to help young players along and be a captain to the team and be a voice. Yes. Earl Thomas, though, probably could have brought a little bit of a different demeanor. You know what I mean? A little bit of a different demeanor. So
I hear you. And those are very fair points, valid points. Like I said, I haven't decided one way or the other. It's just now I'm like thinking about it more. Whereas before it was like, oh yeah, Earl Thomas. You know, that's just my point. Is that like, you know, now you kind of second guess and like, was it the right choice? But you know, you bring up valid points. So before we get into the fantasy football talk, which is what I know some people are waiting for, my friend texted me, and he did say he showed me the report. Tua Tagovailoa was cleared for football activities on March 9th of 2020.
So not yet.
He held the pro day on April 9th.
Pre-pandemic, Kev, not January, but pre-pandemic. But before Cam was. That's the point. I appreciate you standing your ground. I mean, I could dig that.
All right, so let's get into it, fellas. Let's get into it. It's a bummer because I selected this topic first, as a kickoff topic, because I assumed Chrome was going to be here, and I know Chrome is on Kevin's side of this, and then I know Pete, you're on my side, so it would have been a really good debate to have. But poll question. Oh, poll question also brought to you by I never touched on this. Brought to you by QB54, the best tailgating game in the business. Visit them at playqb54shop.com. Promo code no notes to get 20% off. Auction drafts are better than snake drafts. Agree or disagree? Because I'm so passionate about this, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to lead it off. And you know I'm going to say agree. Now, someone who has been playing fantasy football for, what is it now, like 13 years? Yeah, I think 13. I think my first league was 2006, 2007, something like that. So 13, 14 years. I agree to the poll. Auction drafts, that's something I should have been doing years ago in my league. And the committee that I have, because I'm commissioner, the committee that I have, we really should have, we agree, we should have been doing this years ago. And the reason why I am so stuck on auction drafts being better than snake is because auction drafts are it's more strategy when you talk about preparing for an auction draft, and it gives everyone a fair shot at every player. Whereas with a snake draft, oftentimes it's a random order, and if you luck into the first pick of the draft, you get the best player. You get Kevin first pick of the draft. RB1.
Damn, Don.
But like I was saying, there's so much more strategy in auction. There are so many different ways you can build your team than in snake. And if you're one of those people that are out there that haven't tried auction because you're scared of change and you're hesitant, trust me, like just try it. Do a no money league, do a free league, or do a mock draft just to get the hang of it. And before you know it, you'll see why a lot of experts, even like Matthew Berry on ESPN, preaches auction draft over snake. A lot of people at Fantasy Pros, a lot of these well-known people in the media that are fantasy football experts also say the same thing, that auction draft is the preferred way because it's a better, more fair, and more challenging way of drafting and constructing your fantasy football league. So I'm always going to pound the table for auction drafts over snake. I understand if you're like a beginner or if you're just starting, then yeah, snake draft is beneficial because it's easy. It helps you get used to and get into fantasy football and everything because it's just easier. You just pick the best player available. But if you really want to get into the meat and bones of fantasy football, you're diehard, and you really want to challenge yourself, get into an auction league, because that's really where the meat and potatoes of fantasy football are. That really tests your skills as a fantasy football player is auction.
Kev, I'm going to give you a chance to rebuttal.
Yeah.
Because
So for me, I'm split. And first, I have to thank Chuck's for getting me into auction. My first auction, a serious auction league, I messed around with a couple free leagues. My first more so serious one was last year, and then even more so this upcoming season with our draft on Sunday rather. But I also have to thank Brian with FSA, the Fantasy Sports Alliance, for getting me into Dynasty. So for my answer, I like Snake in a Dynasty setting. And the Dynasty League I was just currently a part of was 28 rounds for the opening season, and then 4 rounds every following year for rookies and free agents. And the way it works is you could actually trade draft picks just like in the NFL. So for that, I like the Snake. It gives a very realistic NFL style draft feel. And they also do a 3rd round reversal, which is interesting. But as far as either a redraft where it's a new team every year or a keeper league, I do like the auction style. As Chuck said, it gives a better evaluation across the board to every player and every position. It evens it out a little bit more. So where you would have guys like Christian McCaffrey, go off at, say, for a round number of $50, and then you look at the next tier down at, say, a Mixon, you can fill him in way later in the draft at, say, a $20 evaluation, because it's not by position. You don't see a run like you would in a snake draft, where if Pete and Chuck's take in a PPR, if I see CMC go, Mixon go, my thought right out the bat is I've got to get a Nick Chubb. I've got to go out and get a Kenyon Drake. I got to get a big guy that's going to, be both sides of the ball, a Zeke or a Saquon. I have to get one of those guys because I don't pick for another 20 picks. Whereas in a auction league, you can, if you're running back focused, you can go get your guys real early, back to back, and then wait to see what the other teams are going to tell you the evaluation is on the any other position of quarterback or receiver goes. But as far as, like I said, the dynasty goes, I do like the real feel and the trades that you can make within the actual snake drafts. You can, move up and go get a guy in a round where you see an evaluation. If you want to make your team top heavy or filled out with rookies, as Damian says there, FSA has done a great job in building, fantasy football as a whole, dynasty, redraft, you name it, they got it. Outside of auction, which Chuck's is the guy there.
Before you go, Pete, I do want to respond real quick. That's a good point. I think the only scenario where I would do snake is dynasty, because that's just kind of how you can justify snake draft with dynasty, because every year you have the same rosters. And it's just like in real football, where if your team that you own is in last place, you should get the first pick and so on and so forth. And that for that, it makes absolute sense. So I agree with you there. For dynasty, to me, that's the only format that should do snake. Everything else, it's like anything type of redraft or keeper, should be auction. Pete, go ahead.
So I never participated in a dynasty league. I mean, I guess I could see the benefit of doing a snake just because it's so long. I still would have I probably still would feel some type of way to come up with a very legit way to set your order on the inception year. If like in an inaugural year, if you're doing a dynasty, I mean, but that's neither here. I mean, that's really to get to the guys that are in the league. Outside of auction, like what you guys have already talked about, I agree to the poll. Auctions drafts are, I mean, just cut the bullshit. Like, you have to be good. You have to know what you're doing. You have to prepare. If you don't, then your team is in last place, and then you're buying a trophy or whatever Chuck's Crazy's rule book, handbook, whatever he has. And I just want to let you know, but this guy over here is so serious about his league. I'm like, Jesus Christ. There's fines and everything. And I got in trouble, Chucks, because remember the spreadsheet I showed you?
Yeah.
So the commissioner of that league is like, look at this guy sharing the spreadsheet. I'm like, no, just using it as a template. So, because it's keepers as well. But neither here. I mean, like a snake draft, and I've seen this already. It's already been mentioned before. Like in a snake draft, you literally can be on auto draft and not even be present and end up with a team that possibly can win a chip because it just everything is coming to you in an auction. And especially when you're doing keepers, like I know our draft is Sunday, so it's like there's a fine line because you can seriously go in on any player you want with the draft capital you have. Like I have one of my friends in my other league, he goes for the players that he wants, and then he'll spend $150 of auction cap on 2-3 players, and then he has to build the rest of the team with it. And generally every year he's either close to the playoffs or he's in the playoffs. So you got some people that hold on to the money. The thing is, the money, it goes in waves. Like you'll have your first guy, I'm pretty sure it's going to get overbidded on. Then the next running back at the next tier, maybe RB2 or wide receiver 2, may be more sensible. 3 and 4 also as well. But then once you get to a certain point, as you get later in the rounds, you have to spend that money on someone. So then you get mid-tier guys that you're going to overspend on that have overvalue. There's going to be some good value, some bad value. And it's really just about who it is, like who it is, who you want, especially when you're doing keepers. You do rookies, that adds a different element to it. I mean, really, auction draft. I feel like all auction drafts should be keepers because then you have stake in the league. Like you have, especially if you're doing with people that maybe doing it for 3 or 4 years, 5 years. Obviously, you're going to have certain people rotate in and out. That's just life, but such is life. But if you have people that like 12 people and 10 are going to be there every year, that gives you something to look forward to. That gives you years to plan ahead and start to look at where your money's going to be at and where your value is. Like the dude I'm taking over for in this league, I don't know what the fuck he was thinking. I'm sorry. Yeah. I have such a mess to fix. I'm gonna try.
Me and you are in the same boat, Pete.
I have to make chicken salad out of chicken shit. I swear. But it's an uphill battle, but it's definitely doable. I'll see how the draft goes. But yeah, man, any snake is cool, like you said, if you're a beginner. If you're a beginner, or maybe if you're doing dynasty, snake is cool because it's very easy to introduce yourself. It's very easy to introduce yourself to fantasy football. Who I don't know anybody unless you're like a kid who hasn't played fantasy football. I mean, I know it's popular even among women. They like to play fantasy football. And it's just once you get into that spot to where you go through 2 years or you're in 1 year, you're in say 5 or 10 leagues and they're all snake drafts. And then you start getting that out of 10 teams, if you're 7 or 8 or 4 and 5 or 6 and 7, you're somewhere in the middle. You're just sitting there like, you're just mad as hell because you getting it from both ends. You're in the middle of the whole draft. And you really have to be good to come up with a team that may contend. You know what I mean? So it's just, especially when a snake draft, it's really there. It's here's the top 50 players. This is your turn. You're up. And minimizes. Like you don't even have to think about it. It's autopilot, but we're in the auction. I'm pretty sure what's going to happen. I'm pretty sure he was kept. But let's just say, for instance, on Sunday, Christian McCaffrey, $1. And then somebody's probably going to jump $25, $30, $35, $40,
50,
50, 55, 60. And then this is what happens. Everybody's been in this spot. If you're not doing it in person, if you're doing it online, and the countdown is it'd be $56. And then 5 seconds left on the clock, 58. But then every time that it'll keep going down because people start holding on to money. You start thinking ahead like, okay, I can live without him here, but now you got to get this person. You got to get a Dalvin Cook. You got to get a Saquon. So then you're more all in on the next person where you may overvalue it. So, I mean, auctions is because even though it's fantasy, the results are that's how much you pay for them.
No, don't be surprised in our league.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, he's worth every penny of it. But what do you do after that?
Yeah.
especially when you involve keepers. So like if this was $200 every year, just a clean slate, it's completely different. But it's
Yeah.
not. Like I mean, I looked at it earlier. Like I think I'm going in with like $165 in draft capital already. So things are a little bit different. You got to be smart, but you also got to look ahead as well. So it is, even though the results are reliant on something that you can't control, you have to be smart. And there is a skill putting yourself in a position to be successful. To be,
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's it. That's, I
And
mean,
there's
that's what
so many. You're 100% right. And there's so many different strategies. I mean, like for me, I was always someone that would maybe bid high on one or two, high tier players, and then I would get bargains everywhere else. I know some of my friends. I know Yuli's commenting. Josh is another one. They employed different strategies. Yuli used to be someone that just waited for bargains, because sometimes you'll have, especially if they're beginners. And I remember the early years of our auction league, you've had people overbidding early on players, and then before you know it, the players that are left are still high tier players that are going for 10, $15. And
Right.
usually someone that would wait, and then boom, he's getting all these bargain deals for people. I've seen it happen a lot. There are really, that's why I love auction, is I can try different strategies each year, each league. I can be like, okay, I kind of want to play this out. Depending on who I like in the draft that year, if I'm looking at my target list, I have like a target list of players that I'd want to go after if the price is right, and I put budgets on each player. That's how I do it. So I set a certain cap for each player. For example, if like say I want to target CMC, and I'll put a cap on them like maybe $75 or $80, I won't go higher than that. I do that for each player. But I love how with each year and each league that I'm in for auction, I can customize it. I can be like, okay, I want to go spend on 3 or 4 guys, and then I'll just get dollar players for the rest. Or I want to just get all tier 2, tier 3 players and just be well rounded, Or I want to wait, and I want to wait for the bargains. There are so many things you can do. The one thing I will say for people that want to get into it also and have their own auction league, it's very key for you to pick up and know your league, know the other team
Yes.
members. That is going to be a big advantage to you if you know how certain people draft, if you can pick up on people's tendencies, or if you know that someone's going to bid high on someone. Like there are different techniques, and knowing the rest of your league is very, very, very advantageous when it comes to how you're going to structure your auction.
I would say that is almost true to any league, because if I look back over all the different types of leagues that I've played in, I look at so the Dynasty League that I'm in, we drafted a couple months ago. I actually ended up with 3 first-round picks, and the commissioner of the league who brought me in, Brian, he knows me well enough to where he traded up, and he had 3 of the first-round picks. So out of the 12 picks, we had 6 of them. He took the 3 guys that I targeted. He jumped up 1 spot in front of me on every single every pick I had, and took my 3 guys. And he said, "You know what? I had an idea, but I guessed what you were going to do, and I liked where your thought was ahead of mine." So, and took my players out from under me. Same thing happens in a snake draft, really, is because if you look at if you watch where guys who's already been taken and where the need is, you can always sneak a guy in front of somebody, because you know that you're not going to get another pick for 10, 12, 20 picks, depending on how big it is within the snake. And then, just like you said, as far as the auction goes, everybody knows, it's really no secret that Chucks is a running back guy. If I know that he might value, just from listening to him speak and talk within the show and our different chats, that you're going to value, say, a Miles Sanders really high, just to pick a name, I might start bidding on him just to make you bid higher. I might not need him. I might not want him, but I'll drive the price up just because I know you and I know that you got to have a cap someplace. I'm going to try to guess what that is and get you as close to it to make you spend that money that you don't necessarily need to.
I mean, it's always a chance you take, though. It's always a bluff.
I was going to say that because the crazy thing is about that, because I know, knowing my league, I know people are going to do that to me because they know I'm an Eagles fan. They know I'd never make it hidden who I love,
Right.
and so I that's always a risk people take, though, because I remember one year, and I think Yuli can comment and verify too. He was there one year. Someone tried to outbid me and try to bid up the price on Darren Sproles. I think it was like 2016. So they were assuming, oh, he's going to want Darren Sproles. I was like, okay, like $6. He brought it up to like $9, $10 or something. And I was like, nope, I'm not spending more than that. And even though he didn't want Darren Sproles, he was stuck with him because I didn't match the bid. So that's the great thing. It's so much fun because, especially in person, which is unfortunate because of what's going on now. We have to do our draft online this year, but usually we do it in person. And our drafts are so much fun because like you get moments like that, and it's hilarious when you get a bidding war between people, and or if like someone tries to outbid someone and then it backfires on them just like that. It's a lot of fun. It's a great.
That don't even look like Chuck's, bro.
Oh, that's great. Oh, got my cheeky eyes. But yeah, man, it's a lot of fun. I love that. And Kevin, to what you said, that's exactly true. It's exactly true. If you know me, you're gonna try to boost up the bids on players I love. But then the trick is, what is my cap on each player? Because I'm not spending $100 on a player that I like, because then the rest of my team is going to be for shit. So I have certain caps on players. It's just that where is that cap at, and what is the highest I'm willing to bid on that cap? So that's what makes it a lot of fun.
I mean,
So,
go ahead, Kev.
Just to answer the Steelers fan question and a piece in there for a minute. Unfortunately, I would bid no more than $1 for him, just because. And this is something that we're going to touch on a little bit later. Is winnability in actual football versus stat lines in fantasy football. If you look at different guys like a Matt Stafford per se, he may be a starter on some fantasy teams. 5,000 yards, always playing from behind. He may be a good fantasy guy. But if you look at certain quarterbacks that have better defenses, they may win a lot of games and he may make certain plays, but the stat line's not always top of the league. So although I believe in Stidham's ability to win football games, I know that the Patriots probably have a top 5 defense, or at least had a number 1 defense fantasy-wise last year, and scored more points than most receivers did. I think they averaged in the league I was in 21 points per game as a defense. So having that high of a upside on the opposite side of the ball, you really don't have to score many points offensively to win those games. So Stidham's, I would stay away from Cam as well.
Stop
I don't care.
Stop enunciating his name like that. Stidham. Stop trying to make it sound more eloquent than it is. It's Stidham. God.
Stidham, Cam, whoever it is that ends up starting and getting the majority of the snaps, to me, neither one of them is going to be a fantasy stud. Cam may be a little bit more so, depending on how the scoring is set up. If it allows for more points heavy for rushing touchdown from a quarterback. But regardless, it's going to be, to me, I feel a lot of lower scoring, closer games because of their defense. So, for that reason, $1.
Okay.
I want to touch on real quick. Yuli did post a really good comment. He says 60% of your budget should be on 3 tier 1 to 3 players. That's a general rule of thumb, and that's a good. Like I said, if you're just starting off an auction, that's a general rule of thumb to touch on or to follow. 60% of your budget that you have on tier 1 to 3 players, 3 of them, and then you should be good.
And you kind of get into a scenario like, for instance, who was the pass leader in NFL last year? It
Yards.
It was only one QB that had over 5,000 yards last year. I bet money you won't guess.
Wasn't it Winston?
Okay,
Jameis?
Jameis,
Yeah.
But look at that. Real football, absolute shit. Fantasy,
Also,
he's a stud.
But you also have to.
Interceptions.
That's the other thing is you also have to, anybody, no matter the league, definitely take a look at your scoring because it can be changed and tweaked very much. If you look at 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, a lot of leagues, interceptions are maybe a half a point. Some leagues it's -2 points. So you very quickly you're 150, 200, 300 yards in a bad game can turn into negative points when you see 30 interceptions, even though the yardage is there.
True. Yep. Was that you, Chucks? Did you do that to Yuli?
No, it was someone else. In our league, it was 2 years ago when he thought he was bidding on Mark Ingram, but it was the guy that was nominated was Evan Ingram. And so Yuli kept bidding up, and the guy was like, okay, I'm going to bid you up. And so Yuli won it, and then we were like, Yuli, you have like 3 tight ends now. And he was like, what? I won Mark Ingram. I'm like, no, you were bidding on Evan. So that was fun. He was not happy about that, I remember.
And I will say this, though, like for me, as I sit here and we do Birds of a Feather, it's an Eagles-based show. I mean, it's a football-related show, but I mean, obviously it's root for the home team. I can give 2 shits about my home team when it comes to my fantasy team. I have no allegiance except for my pocket. That's the only allegiance I have.
That was a question that was actually posed earlier, is if a Dolphins receiver was the highest on the board, would I take him? And to me, absolutely. I don't care what the team is. I don't tend to take Dolphins receivers because of the quarterback situation, because you never know where the ball's gonna be. Same with New England receivers. It's a little bit harder because they spread the ball around so much. But I know that that's actually a little bit different from Chuck's, who doesn't take anybody within the division.
Right.
Yeah, like when it comes, and I said this last week, like when it comes to my fantasy football advice, if you ever want it, I don't know why you would, but if you ever want it, it's always practice what I preach, not what I do, because I will be the first to admit I'm someone that I can't put my fanhood over fantasy. And that's what I've always struggled with. And I admit it. I will always admit it. But so I try to minimalize as best I can, but I just can't live with the thought of having someone on a division rival on my fantasy team. So that's just me, but never do what I do. What my mindset is with fantasy football and fanhood should never be practiced by someone. I would never recommend it. So it's not a good way to do fantasy football. It's better to detach yourself. I've just come with terms of the fact that I can't detach myself. I'm too big of a fan. I'm too passionate. So I just try to live with it, and I try to maintain it as much as possible. I remember one year I did have Deshaun Jackson, who was on the Redskins. I did have him for a few weeks. So that was one. But again, he was on Washington. Washington's not really a team I hate. He wasn't a Giant or a Cowboy. I've never had a Giant or a Cowboy on my team. So
the biggest pot I ever won, which I think was like $2,000, I had Zeke and Dak on that team. So I rode them damn Cowboys right there.
And you really, the thing is, what's funny is like you'll have people even as big, like someone who, like I was listening to someone on one of my football podcasts, and he admits that like it's hard for him to separate fanhood too with fantasy football, but he's the opposite way, where because of his fanhood, he doesn't draft Eagles players ever on his team because his mindset is, I don't ever want my fantasy football team to diminish what I'm cheering for on Sunday. He doesn't want, like, say, for example, Boston Scott to score a touchdown, but then he's going to get angry that Miles Sanders didn't get the touchdown because that's who he has. He doesn't want that mindset. So it's funny, like you hear people that have just different mindsets like that in fantasy football. But, just, again, preach what I say, not what I do, because I have
See,
issues. I'm definitely flawed when it comes to my fantasy football. So don't do what I do.
I
Uh,
would say though, in your situation, mine as well, being a Patriots fan, but it's a lot easier to do for us because outside of the studs, which if you're doing a snake draft are going to be your, first round or two. I'm talking about your Zeke, your Dax, maybe your Amari Coopers and CeeDee Lamb type guys. Uh, you know, those are really your top tier guys within the division off your team that you would really look at. But there's so much other talent right in that realm as well. It's not like it's heavily stacked. It's not like you are a Don where would be said he would only ever take the Bears defense when to me I'm very high on Adam Thielen in late round, especially PPR, and Dalvin Cook. So those two types of guys, I don't care if they're not on my team or not. I would target them. So a lot easier to do in I would say a tighter, closer division versus somebody with three top tier teams. Same with if you look at like the 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals, those teams, it'd be very tough to not want to target somebody outside of your team.
what's
Yo,
going
brother.
on, man?
What's up? What's up, fam?
You to drop on in. You
Yeah.
came just in time. We're about to switch to our
Yeah.
second. So
I gotta tell you, I came just in time because I think the idea that I'm not drafting anybody in my division is absolutely asinine. There's no point in doing fantasy football if that's what you do. And I'll tell you what, I rode Ezekiel Elliott to a $2,500 payday, and I'll do it all year. I'll have Ezekiel Elliott, Dak, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. Fuck, if Jason Witten can find his young legs, I'll take Jason Witten too. Give me all of them. I'll ride them to the end.
Witten's on the Raiders.
Oh, is he? I don't even know.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah.
I'll take any of them. Anybody, anywhere. Doesn't matter if they're a giant. If Daniel Jones is the hot hand and I got to ride with him, I'm rolling with him. Whatever's going to put money in my pocket. At the end of the day, what I'll tell you is if it comes down to, if I'm in the championship of a fantasy football league and, my team's playoff hopes are on the line, I'm not going to root against my team. But I would love to see, if I have Amari Cooper on my team, I won 150 yards against the Eagles, and they still get a loss. I don't give a shit. It's fine. Yeah. But I think it's asinine, the idea that people question. It's fine if you don't want to do it, and that's one thing. You're not, judgmental about it. The people who are judgmental about people who are okay, which it's because they like money, are okay with taking people from the other division and try to say that they're less of a fan for it. Those people are complete morons.
No, I would never do that.
But Chuck knows this because Chuck's was in my league that year. I won $2,500 on that.
Oh, yeah.
I had Ezekiel Elliott and David Johnson, and I ran that shit right all the way to the end, baby.
Absolutely.
So it's actually funny that you say that, as far as drafting players without outside of your team, because you name it, I've done it as far as yelling at the TV when it comes to the Patriots versus, another AFC's team, where it comes to if I've got Edelman on my team and they throw the ball to another player, I start yelling, why are you throwing it to that guy? And then vice versa. If I've got Josh Allen leading my team, I want him to throw, just enough to win my game, but lose against the Patriots. So, I've definitely had that headache, but, ultimately money's money. I like to see both the Patriots win and money in my pocket, but, whatever gets it done at the end of the day.
I will say the one player on a division rival that I haven't had a chance to yet, but if I had a chance to, I would absolutely take Saquon. Yeah, so he'd be the exception. I would have no problem about that. Yeah.
But on the flip side, you're talking about taking people of your own team. I don't not take Eagles because of fandom. I don't take Eagles because people reach for Eagles in our fantasy leagues, which I'm like, great, go ahead, take them all. Take Miles Sanders and take this and that and let everybody drop to me. I will be happy to take them. So, that's the only reason I don't often end up with Eagles, and I'm fine with that. People draft the Eagles defense way too early all the time. It's About the only time I ever really end up with an Eagles player is sometimes the kicker. And even that, even people will draft a kicker and reach for him. It's insane.
Yeah.
But no, am I drinking Crystal Pepsi? No, it's Diet Buddy.
Oh.
So we're doing what? Handcuffs next?
Yeah. So let's talk about again because we're almost at the bottom of the first hour. So let's get into our second topic. Let's cover running back training camp battles and handcuffs. So I know there are like I said earlier in the show, there are a lot of training camp battles around the league where we don't know yet who is going to be the starter. And so let's talk about who we think is the better running back, who's going to win the job and who's going to end up as the starter by the end of the year. So, and then also consequently, we'll get into the discussion of what handcuffs are worth taking. I know that's a big thing in fantasy now. Are handcuffs even worth it? Like, or should you just draft, running back starters anyway? Like, to me, I'm someone who believes a handcuff is worth it if that player is talented enough. So we'll talk about which running back handcuffs you think are worth investing in. But let's start off. I have a few. We'll touch on them, and then if you guys have more that you think are more battles between one or two running backs, we'll bring them up. But at first, right now, I have in Indianapolis, Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack. Right now on the depth chart, on official depth chart, it does have Marlon Mack listed as the starter over Jonathan Taylor. So who would you guys pick in fantasy league for this year and for any type of keeper league? Are you going for Marlon Mack or are you going for Jonathan Taylor?
So for me, I would say as a redraft in a redraft setting, I would target both. That is definitely a handcuff that I would look at. And I think the real thing to look at is where are their draft value at. They're both later round guys, so it's not like you have to go out and go high on somebody and then it's another tier right behind them. It's not like a fan favorite, or it's not if you're in this area drafting anyway, it's not a hometown favorite that is going to be sold high on. I think those are both mid round guys that you can swing if you set yourself up right and that you're going to stash them away later. I think if you're looking at any type of keeper league, I think the guy to go after is Johnson. I don't think Mack is going to be there. I think Taylor. Yes, Taylor. I think Mack is closer to his ceiling already versus Taylor. So that's the guy I would go with versus Mack. But overall, a good handcuff to grab.
Yeah, I agree. I think I would go Jonathan Taylor here, too, if we're talking about a keeper league. I just think he has a bigger upside. I think he could emerge and have more carries this year. I don't know who's going to be the starter. I mean, I know you said Mack is listed as the starter. It wouldn't shock me if Taylor takes that job as the number one, the RB1, right, and Mack falls to the RB2. But, yeah, 100% for me. If I'm only getting one, I'm going Jonathan Taylor.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree, Taylor, especially for a keeper.
Yeah, I know that Steelers fan asked, he says he doesn't know why the Colts drafted Taylor. Look at their offense in terms of that Frank Reich obviously has ties for here in Philly, and he likes using heavy packages with multiple tight ends. And that offensive line is probably the best in the league.
I think it is. Yeah, for sure.
They want to, and considering Phillip Rivers is the quarterback, they want to pound the ball. They want to be a running team. So they draft Jonathan Taylor, one, because he's there, and two, because in terms of just running the ball, he was probably the most talented runner in the draft. He is a phenomenal weapon on the ground. As a receiver, not so much. So he's more of just like a early down traditional, workhorse type of back. But man, he has got blazing speed for a guy that's about 220 pounds. He's a big guy, 5'11", 220, with 4.4 speed, sub 4.4 speed. And so that's hard to find. He is going to feast in Indy. And even though I do think Mack is still going to get his touches because him and Hines are better receivers in that offense, I think when it comes to getting the workload and majority of the touches, I think it's still going to be Taylor. I like Taylor. I love Taylor in landing in Indy. I thought that was a great spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, he could have 1,000 yards rushing this year. He could definitely have, well over 200 carries and 1,000 yards rushing as an RB2. And that's if he doesn't. He could. I'm saying he could, Pete.
No. I wouldn't consider him an RB2 though. Like, I think that's.
Saying,
I think.
Well, we're taking the depth chart as it is right this moment.
Okay.
But I think that he's going to end up being the RB1 by at some point if he's not by opening day.
Right.
Yeah.
So but to circle back, would you both, Chucks and Chrome, target both as a handcuff until that trade-off happens with Mack to Taylor in the turning of the tides, or would you solely target Taylor later?
For me personally, just my own draft strategy, I don't typically target handcuffs. I don't look to get both. I try to get the best one out of the deal. And then if the other one is there and falls at the right spot, I'll take them. Mm-hmm. But for me, my strategy is always to try to vary the bye weeks. And I would rather have guys from multiple teams than to try to take two roster spots with one bye week gone at one position. That's just me.
Yeah, I agree. I would, for me, I would at the right price. Because remember, Crowe's talking about snake draft. I'm coming from an auction draft type of mindset. For the right price, I would take Mack. Mack, to me, I wouldn't pay more than $10 for him. But there is upside there if Jonathan Taylor gets hurt. And like we said, Mack is more of a better receiver than Jonathan Taylor does. So that is a part of his game that he does have value over in terms of he does have over Taylor. But it's hard for me to put anything more than about $10 is probably what I'd cap him at. Let's move on to next.
Damian, so to answer your question real quick, being drafted in a 4th round PPR formats Mack down in the 7th, which one returns more value? I still would say JT. See, it's because with Indy, I look at Frank Reich's offense, and I understand that Mack does provide you some things out of the backfield as far as the receptions, but I think he was forced to do that out of necessity. We've seen it here with Frank Reich when he was here. If he could run the ball, he's going to option to run the ball. I mean, that's his thing. And really, as far as handcuffs go, or having running backs on the same team, the roles have to be clearly defined, almost a la Ingram and Kamara. That type of where you just know there's so much to go around. Even where if people could have streamed San Fran's running backs last year to see which one was hot, and you would have did all right. But to consistently own both and keep them on a roster all year, that's the problem. So we can sit here and talk about handcuffs all day, but if you get to week 6 or week 8, and one person is just consistently getting the touches, then it's almost like you wasted draft capital on picking up a handcuff early. It's one thing to pick them up on the waiver wire, but to draft them as one of your picks or to devote auction capital to them, that's something I usually don't do that on draft day. That may be something I look forward to later on down the road. Now, out of the handcuffs that we're talking about, the one that intrigues me the most is Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Because to me, I don't believe it's hard for me. Outside of what Kareem Hunt did off the field, if you're just looking at the two, I mean, I think Chubb is top 3 running back this year. And that's in real football and in fantasy. So to me personally, I don't see that being that much of a handcuff unless Chubb gets hurt. I wouldn't, because I think Kareem Hunt is going to get drafted anyway. But so if you're able to get both, I mean, that could be a situation where you would carry both of them on the roster for a significant amount of time. If you can get Hunt pretty cheap, or you can get Hunt and the Snake, or whatever format that you choose. And if you, I saw there was one comment to ask him what our first topic was, and that was the first topic. It was auction versus snake draft, and a little bit of Kev backtracking from Cam mixed in as well. But that's the only other one that I can see that on this list that intrigues me to the point where I don't know if I would consider it a true handcuff, just because I just think that Chubb is not that much far ahead in talent for Kareem Hunt, but just in the situation and what he did last year.
Yeah, for me, it's for when you talk about Kareem, like I love that situation because I don't personally in drafts. I mean, as long if we're assuming that the value is right, I don't think you can go wrong with either or because personally for me, and I might be biased, but in terms of just talking about talent, to me, Kareem Hunt at his peak was more talented than Nick Chubb. It's very close. Though. I might have like in an ideal situation when they're both playing at their peak, I might have Kareem Hunt ranked like the third or fourth best running back, where Chubb is like the fourth or fifth. So like I mean they're very close to each other. I love Hunt's versatility over Chubb, and that's why I pick Hunt. But you're talking about a team that has potentially two elite running backs on the roster. And if you looked at how they used both of them at the end of last year, they were both used on the field at the same time quite a bit. And Stefanski has said he's going to do both. So in terms of fantasy, you can draft. I think Hunt is one of those where you have to really keep an eye on. Because if he drops to a good round in snake drafts, or if you can get him for a pretty good price in auction, he's someone where he can give you flex value, flex production, but also if something happens to Chubb, he can give you RB1 production. So that's something where it's very low risk, high reward because he will still give you value either way. But if something happens to Chubb, he will be phenomenal. And before anyone else touches on, I know SGM said here, everyone forgets Frank Reich used Cory Clement, who also went to Wisconsin and wasn't a pass catcher out of college either. I will dispute that because Cory Clement, he has said before he attributes his development as a receiver to Deuce Staley. And the reason why he hasn't looked the same since Reich left is because he's been hurt. So it's not that Reich was the one who developed Clement's receiving ability. It was Deuce Staley that did so. So I don't know if Reich has that type of rapport or coaching ability to develop that aspect of a running back's game. So that's what I'll say to that. But what else you guys got on if anyone else has anything on Hunt and Chubb?
Yeah, for me, that was the biggest pairing out of any handcuff that I could think of. Because I've seen Chubb going right around 5 as far as running backs go, with Saquon, Zeke, CMC, and maybe Cook. Flip flopping back and forth with Cook at the 5 spot, going early rounds in the first 2. Hunt has been dropping heavily because of the unknown factor. Last year, only playing the back half of the season and having such a dominant running back with Chubb on the team. I see the tides turning a little bit and Hunt cutting into the rushing ability, but Chubb is a receiver out of the backfield as well. So to me, if I'm going to target either one, it would be Chubb very early. And if you can get, if I get a Chubb and I get, say, a solid first down back and catch Hunt later, I would rather do that. I wouldn't target him necessarily, but
I'm so childish.
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't
I'm
mind
such a child.
having either.
I immediately giggled like a child.
I wouldn't mind
I
having
can't.
both on my team, but I would target Chubb out of the pair.
What shocks me about Chubb is how you would think he's a top 5 in fantasy, but if you go and you look at projections from all different sites, they have him anywhere between like 7 to like 10 or 11 on the running back rankings. And I'm like, what? Like, to me, I just look at some of the names, right? So I just for hell's sake of it, I pulled up ESPN. So you guys tell me if you would rather have Chubb or this person, okay? I think the first couple are pretty easy. Christian McCaffrey or Nick Chubb. McCaffrey. Saquon Barkley. Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke. Alvin Kamara.
Over Chubb?
I'd rather have Chubb.
I'd rather have Chubb.
I'd rather have
So-
Chubb. Dalvin Cook.
Cook.
See, I think I'd still rather have Chubb, but it's close. That makes me think. Derrick Henry.
Chubb.
Chubb.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Chubb.
Clyde.
I just
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I've seen Chubb. That's
I
the
don't
only
need to
thing.
see it. To me,
So
Clyde is.
So that means
wait,
on Sunday. That's on Sunday when we nominate Clyde.
Is going to be just like Kareem Hunt. Remember how Kareem Hunt immediately
Yeah.
stepped in week 1 and was top back right off the gate? To me, I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be the same. In that type of offense, in a PPR,
here's the issue though.
that type of offense.
Here's the issue, though. Compared to when Hunt came in with the Chiefs out the gate, it wasn't as stretched the field as they are now. Now they've got too many weapons. If I'm talking about the team, who I think may do better within this situation, I may go with Clyde. I think that his upside may be a little bit higher. But if I'm talking about pure stat lines as it comes to a fantasy perspective, I think that it's going to be there more so for Chubb because, I'm not sold on Baker and I'm not sold on his chemistry with both receivers. So when in doubt, it's either Chubb in the backfield, then he makes a play and you break something off, and he has the higher PPR upside. Which if you're not playing PPR, then I don't even know if you're playing fantasy or not. But so to me, I lean that way, and I think that's where the mix in the rankings comes in a lot because if I'm talking about if I'm looking at the rushing leader, I may take Henry. If as far as 1,200 yards, 1,300 yards, but if I'm looking at just a step down, 1,000 yards, and 5 receiving touchdowns on top of it, that very much so leans to your Hunt and your Cook and those guys. So I think that's where people have to separate what their idea of a fantasy running back is versus a on the field dominant running back.
Right.
So,
And
these are
Kevin,
PPR, by the way.
you say that you're talking about Chubb as if like he's a prolific pass catcher, but he's not. Like he had 200 yards receiving last year, and plus that was 8 games without Hunt. And if you just said if you're not playing PPR, well, you're not even playing fantasy football.
My thing is I think he's got the side there though.
Well, hold on. We've all seen in an Andy Reid offense. Yeah, right now they're all about vertical, stretching the field vertically. But why did they draft Clyde early in the draft, as in late in the first round? Because they know that he is someone who can capitalize on that field stretching. You have the defense being stretched vertically. Clyde is going to get a lot of that underneath stuff, draw plays, screens. He's phenomenal on screens. Look what he did with Brian Westbrook. Look what he did with LaShawn McCoy as a screen weapon. He is phenomenal in the screen game. So what is a screen? It's a pass play. So you're going to get credit you're going to get points on an easy screen play. Give me Andy Reid's offense for a running back running those screens over Stefanski in Cleveland with Chubb. Chubb is not a prolific receiver. Clyde is. Clyde is the prolific receiver. He's going to be used in the receiving game. So if you're doing PPR, especially if it's full PPR,
Right.
I'm Clyde over Chubb. I'm absolutely going Clyde over Chubb.
I mean, there's an argument. There's an argument to
but-
be made there either way.
To me,
Right.
you can make an argument for touchdowns. I get you on there.
And that's
Right.
the argument I was going to bring up is that when I'm talking about getting in the end zone, that's going to make up the difference in that point differential on fantasy.
Right.
So to me, I have more confidence that Chubb's going to pound that football into the end zone way more than we may. Clyde might have a ton of touchdowns this year. We don't know. But we've seen what Nick Chubb can do. We've seen how he can get to the end zone. And for that, I would feel 100% more confident with that, which is why I would want, without question, at least this season, I would go Chubb over Clyde until, like this guy said earlier, I have to see it first. I got to see how often, especially in that offense. He might be a guy who's going to get catches and move the football in many different ways. But as far as getting in the end zone, there's a lot of guys in there that are going to be getting into the end zone.
Now, speaking of end zone, like that, I say 5 or 6 years ago, you used to be careful about who you would draft as far as a running back position because you didn't want to draft someone that would have a vulture on their team that would vulture those red zone carries. I don't think you're seeing that much
David
anymore.
Johnson, his rookie year, baby.
You know what I mean? Like I don't think you're seeing it anymore. And I actually predict David Johnson may have a good year this year, bouncing back in Houston with Bill O'Brien. But like I'll give you somebody you always want to look at. I always look at my strategies. I always look at people who are very versatile and that may still have upside. And the top player that I can think of who may give Nick Chubb a run for his money, may give Clyde Edwards-Helaire a run for the money this year, who had a good year last year, should have won Rookie of the Year outside of Miles Sanders and Kyler Murray, but that's Josh Jacobs. I mean, we heard some rumblings coming out of Oakland already that they're going to be more active in the pass game, and I mean the running backs behind him are truly to spell him, to give him a blow, where he's going to be involved in 3/4 of the snaps from the running back position and the touches there, and is still young enough to be able to hold on. So I expect a big year from him. And someone like that, you may look at that team and say, okay, well, do I take someone in his back? It's not even worth it. Whereas if you look at a situation as in Seattle, just due to health and how they run the ball, that's where you may want to go a Chris Carson and maybe a Rashad Penny deep, because whoever starts out the year at Seattle as a running back doesn't finish the year because how much they run the ball.
I want to answer Damien's question down here because he says if you're going CEH over Chubb, how do you not go Kamara over Chubb? Same exact debate and situation. Kamara has proven he can do. CEH is a rookie. I think it depends on your situation. First of all, I primarily do keeper leagues, so my mentality is always youth and what I can see. We've also talked about it on this show. Although I believe that Kamara will have a bounce back year, I would feel more comfortable with Chubb at this point as opposed to Kamara in his career at the point that he's at in his career. I don't think he's been. We've talked about it. He hasn't been the same guy since Ingram left, and I think that he's got a lot to prove this year as far as is he the same guy as opposed to I'll roll the dice. Well, first of all, to me, Nick Chubb's not a dice roll. And also, when you talk about CEH, I'll roll the dice on a young guy who is in the Kansas City offense as opposed to the uncertainty of where Kamara might be at in his career. If anybody wants to add anything to that, but I feel like that's how I would evaluate those situations being completely different.
Right.
Age is a big factor. And keeper value, if you're looking at keeper potential.
Yeah. I personally remember weeks or months ago when we were having that running back draft thing for with Tom and whatnot, and I had said like I don't know what happened to Kamara last year. Well, it was just found out that Kamara did have an injury that he didn't really I don't think the team disclosed until now. So he wasn't 100%. So if you're willing to buy into that might be a reason why you should be a little higher in Kamara going into this year and to buy into the fact that he could have a bounce back year. I think he's still a great talent. So I think I'm with you, Chrome. I think Kamara has a bounce back year. If you're going keeper league, say like this is your first keeper league and first time drafting these guys, and you're trying to go for long term, like I would probably go Chubb by a hair for long term. But with just looking at it straight face to face, I personally would go Kamara over Chubb. I like Kamara's versatility in that offense in a PPR league over what Chubb does. But that's my philosophy.
Yeah, okay. and I mean for me, even if I'm putting all three of them in the same pool, to me Kamara is the last guy I'm taking out of that pool because I think I go with Chubb, who I think is younger, obviously younger, much more established at this point. We've seen what he can do. I feel like as long for all of them, it's a caveat of all these guys stay healthy, by the way. I feel like Chubb will get to the end zone. He will put up big points in fantasy football. CEH would be my number 2 because I believe in the youth and the potential that's there that I don't feel like is as much of a gamble. I feel like I would be taking a risk by letting Chubb sit on the board and taking that risk with a young guy who's a rookie and hasn't proven himself yet. However, I wouldn't feel as bad about Kamara knowing he came from the down year and I kind of buy into the injury thing, but I still think he may have lost a slight step. Again, I think he's going to have a bounce back here. I don't know that he's going to be the superstar that he was previously, but I think he's still going to be a damn good running back. Still think he's going to be a focal point in the offense and produce. But in terms of those three, I'm going youth, and then I'm going who showed it to me first. That's how I'm ranking it. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. And then, like, for instance, we talk about talent versus situation. Like, I think if you take a Saquon or you take a Christian McCaffrey and you put them on Kansas City, I don't know if they will be ranked as the number one running back and like arguably, because just what Kansas City has, the ball has to go to so many people to where in Carolina with Christian McCaffrey, you really have the 10. Like that's kind of it when you look at the backfield, and he has minimal space to operate. Whereas CEH in Kansas City is going to have a lot of space. I mean, if you swap Kamara and CEH situation, if you put CEH on New Orleans and Kamara in Kansas City, I mean, it's kind of almost it's a flip of a coin. You know what I mean? But handcuffs wise, I mean, that's really kind of it as far as that. I mean, what are you guys looking at as your high upside players coming up on this year?
Well, I mean, I have another really quick running back battle that I want to get your guys' opinion on before we go. I know that I wanted to touch on the Rams and the Lions. I know there's with the Rams, just Cam Akers.
Rams is a good one.
Darrell Henderson. I'm taking Cam Akers. I believe Cam Akers is the better talent there. And with what's the other one I said? I said Detroit. Right?
Detroit, carry on and DeAndre.
Carry on and DeAndre. I'm going Swift. I think Swift is a better talent than carry on. Now with Detroit, I think it might take a little. It might be mid-season when they start to get Swift more carries. So I think carry on will start as a starting guy. But if you're talking about long-term and keeper value and everything, I'm going Swift. The Rams is a very interesting situation. I think Darrell Henderson, his skill set coming into the draft was that he was a perfect fit for that outside zone running scheme because he's got burnt for days. So he gets wide, he makes one cut, and he's gone. That's what he has. He has that in that system, Sean McVay's system. It fits him. However, in terms of overall talent, Cam Akers, he's no slouch when it comes to dynamic playmaking ability. And to me, he's just a better talent. He's more athletic. He's a great receiver. He's got some stuff to work on in blocking, but he's more than willing. And what was unfortunate with him in Florida State was that his offensive line was complete garbage, but he made stuff out of nothing so often. And so the only question mark with Cam is he going to be able to show he's disciplined enough in an outside zone run scheme that Sean McVay runs? Can he show the discipline to stick with that kind of zone scheme? Because you have to just be one cut and go. With Cam Akers, a lot of it was forced. He had to dance around in the backfield a lot to make something happen because blocking just wasn't there. He's going to have to show in LA that he can be disciplined, stay on his path, and then stick one foot in the ground and get upfield. If he can learn to do that and balance out his creative ability to make something out of nothing and save that for when it's absolutely necessary, but stay within the structure of that running scheme, he will absolutely win that job. But Darrell Henderson's skill set right now is more fitting until Cam can show he can stay disciplined. But I like Cam over Henderson.
And to kind of jump off what you said there, I think in both areas, both LA and with the Rams and the Lions, I think the guys that are already there may have the leg up to start the season. Even though Carrion's coming off of an injury, Darrell Henderson has already been in the system with the outside zone scheme, and he's more familiar with it. Akers, it's different coming into the league. This pace of play from college, to the NFL, and also staying with that vision, because we've seen it with Miles Sanders. You really don't see it there, and you don't know what to do. You're going to resort to what you want to do, and that's bouncing it outside that. And you have to be so disciplined in those running lanes when it comes to Sean McVay's offense. The Detroit situation, I don't want to say it intrigues me a little bit more, because I'm higher on DeAndre Swift than the Cam Akers, and I think, but with DeAndre, with Darrell Bevell there, and maybe Don could chime into this as well. He kind of preached that they want the offense to be balanced. So when it comes to Kerryon and it comes to DeAndre, it's like when you look at what Darrell Bevell wants to do and how he wants the offense to run, it's still kind of up in the air. So for me, that's a little bit more difficult. Obviously, I think Swift is more of a versatile running back than Kerryon is. Kerryon's more of a bruiser. But with that being said, we are talking about Darrell Bevell here. You know, we're all talking about Darrell Bevell here. So it's a little bit different. I'm very interested to see how that's going to play out, because I think that's so, in certain situations, it's so pertinent, I guess that you would say, so important to say what the OC envisions the offense to be and what type of tone they want to set.
Absolutely.
And because that can take the talent completely out of it.
Yeah. I love some other of my. I'm going to get to Yusuf's question, but some other of my handcuffs I just want to throw out that I would consider handcuffs worth taking. We already mentioned Kareem Hunt. There are 3 other guys I really like. I like J.K. Dobbins. I like Philip Lindsay. And I like Alexander Madison. All 3 of them, man. Like Dobbins, obviously we know the talent. He's the future there. You might as well draft him in case something happens to Ingram. Philip Lindsay, to me, I'm a Philip Lindsay guy. I think he's a better runner than Melvin Gordon is, but Melvin Gordon is more versatile at this point. Philip Lindsay has to show that he can be a better receiver. And so Gordon is going to be like the lead guy to start. That's why they got him. But I think that if Lindsay can show he's developed that versatility and improved it as a receiver, and he can stay healthy, which he's been able to do more so than Gordon has, I think Lindsay could overtake him at some point. He has the ability to. It's just, is he going to get the opportunity to? And is he going to take advantage of that? And then with Alexander Madison is someone that reminds me, and I said it last year, he reminds me of Jay Ajayi, the way he runs. He's physical as crap. He breaks a lot of tackles, great contact balance, and he runs that zone scheme in Minnesota very well. We know Dalvin Cook has that contract situation. If something happens to him injury-wise too, which also is something, Cook hasn't been able to stay healthy for much of his career, Madison is someone who can be an RB2 in the league if you get him late. So really, really keep an eye on them. Yusuf asks, would you guys draft Gibson, Love, or AP? That Washington backfield is very, very tough. What do you think, Pete? Like, what would you?
I mean, Gibson is a tweener. I mean, you kind of don't know what to expect. Love is, I mean, out of those 3, I would probably. There's no way I would just if I'm committing to them. There's no way I would just take. It's hard to take one. I would only feel comfortable if I had 2 of those 3. Whether it be an AP and a Love or an AP or a Gibson, because I just don't know what their backfield situation is. Real quick on Melvin Gordon in Denver, I think that may be the most vulturous position, the most vulturous situation, where I can see Philip Lindsay getting a lot of yards in between the red zones. But then as they get closer to the goal line, I mean, Melvin Gordon is the perfect complement to that, to where Melvin Gordon may have that value to really see the end zone a lot this year. But Yusuf, man, that's tough, just because what happened with Geis happened kind of late in the training camp, and it kind of threw everything for a loop. I don't know where they go. And Bryce Love is he now 18 months? He's more than 18 months removed from the injury, correct?
Yeah.
But even his running style, he was more of a shifty, speedy guy. I mean, listen, this is great news for AP. I'll tell you that. Because they still, no matter what, have a need for him. They can't just get rid of him, because you can't find production like that just off the street. So is Gibson, is he going to be listed? Is he listed as a running back, or is he listed as a wideout?
I believe they list him as a running back, But like you said, he is a tweener. And the thing about
Yeah.
Gibson, if I'm looking at Ron Rivera and who's the offensive coordinator there? Sorry, I can't remember who the offensive coordinator is.
Isn't it Shula?
Is it Shula? Yusuf, if you
No,
remember.
no, it's Turner. It's Turner. Isn't it North Turner?
Is it North Turner? Oh, I thought North Turner was somewhere else. I gotta look. Yusuf, if you remember, drop it in. But if Rivera is going to use or look
Scott Turner.
Is it Scott Turner? Okay. If he's going to try to use someone like CMC, if he wants that for his offense, it's going to be Gibson, because with Bryce Love, he's fast. He's got, before the injury. Now, I don't know if he's the same guy after injury. Right. Bryce Love is fast. He can hit the afterburners. He's got speed. But he is not a receiver. Like, he's not a proven receiver. He didn't do a lot of that in was it Stanford?
No, who? Bryce Love?
Bryce Love.
Yeah, Stanford Pac-12. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. So he didn't do a lot of that at Stanford. Gibson, as we all know, he's a hybrid. He played a lot of slot, especially last year. The thing is with him, he didn't play a lot of running back. And one of the big question marks drafting him was, okay, people are projecting him as a running back. Well, where has he shown he can be a running back, especially like outside of being sparingly used for some carries? So I think you hit the nail on the head. I think Peterson obviously is the main workhorse there, but if there's going to be a complement to him, my money would probably be on Gibson long term. But it's hard to, when we don't know how lack of preseason games is going to affect them, because again, he's got to show that he can actually make do carries as a running back, which he didn't do a lot of in his final year in college. But I like Gibson's skill set. He's bigger, got better contact balance and strength. He's shiftier, but Bryce Love just has him in speed. So, but I have heard that Bryce Love has done well in training camp so far. So that there's that. I know Don asked. Oh, let's go to Rick's question.
Yeah, let me go to this question here. Rick Hyatt, he says, how important is strength of schedule in fantasy? I use RB defense and wide receiver defense to help me draft. I don't know about you guys. I don't put a whole lot into this. Maybe in a small instance, I don't put a lot of stock into it. I might consider or reconsider taking a specific player. First of all, if it's the top players, I don't care what their schedule is going to look like, because they're going to be top producers anyway. When I'm looking at my secondary players, my guys who might fill in at certain positions during bye weeks, or maybe certain spots where they could face tough defensive matchups, then I might look and see what the defenses look like in those divisions. If I'm going for a running back, and maybe the defenses are very, maybe they're run stoppers but give up in the pass game, I might not consider a running back specifically in that division. But overall, I don't put a whole ton of stock into defenses, guys, in terms of when I'm drafting specific positions. What about you guys?
I mean, I couldn't have said it better than myself. Definitely when it comes to your top guys, and this kind of leads us into like that talent versus situation aspect. When it comes to your tier one players, it doesn't matter. You're ready to line them up against anybody. That's what they're there for. That's why their value is so high. Maybe somewhat to like, I'll look at situational, what the situation as far as wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s. If they have a strong wide receiver 1 there, they may see some lackluster DB matchups on more weeks or not, and they still have some talent. Like probably to me, one of the best situations for really a wide receiver 2, you got Cleveland, you got OBJ, you got Jarvis Landry, especially in the PPR, half PPR, in that situation where there's a value receiver, Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones, situations like that. But when it comes to Rick's question particularly, that's where you stream. That's when you're looking at who has the worst pass defense. For instance, the Eagles, 2018, was giving up yards to every wide receiver. I didn't care who it was. as long as you streamed one of those wide receivers against the Eagles, you probably did pretty well. You got some respectable value fantasy-wise out of somebody who probably didn't put up numbers against any other team that year or very little. So that's a situation where you would want to look at that as far as what the defense is giving you in the rankings as well as that. And also just their targets. That may play a part into it as well. I think it's a very flawed strategy if you go into a season and you're drafting using some of that information because that's so hard to project something like that. But for streamers week to week, like Chrome said, bye weeks, maybe even DFS, if you're looking at that, if you're doing some daily fantasies during the year, that's something that would definitely play a part when you look at matchups in the defensive rankings.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't have anything to add. You guys pretty much said it all. I agree with everything you said. With the tier 1 players or top tier players, I don't look at that. That's more of like the lower tier, like streaming players that I'm looking for bye week fill-ins and stuff like that. That's when I consider matchups and defenses and stuff like that. But top tier players, I'm playing talent.
Let me get your guys' input on this because I'm kind of on the fence. And then Pete, you kind of touched on it earlier. I am in a keeper league. All right. So you keep guys and you lose them a round up. I did have Deebo Samuel and I had to drop him last year because he wasn't doing anything and I had an issue with a wide receiver. So anyway, he's not eligible to be kept though. You can only keep him in certain situations. So anyway, my question is, you keep 3 guys. So right now I am keeping Nick Chubb and I lose my 10th round pick. And I'm keeping Adam Thielen, and I lose my 7th round pick. I'm kind of not sure what to do in my 3rd keeper. So I'm going to ask for you guys, and if anybody wants to chime in here. My options aren't great because I had some injury issues and with some stuff last year. So I'm basically looking at keeping my defense from late in the draft, or I'm looking at, do I roll the dice, and do I keep David Johnson again and lose an 8th round pick? So I could keep David Johnson and lose an 8th round pick, or I could keep Baltimore's defense and lose a 13th round pick out of a 16 round draft. I mean, really, that's probably my only 2 viable options. I have Matt Breida late in the draft, but only a pick behind Johnson. I'd probably rather roll the dice with Johnson. Damn, I wish I had Deebo right now.
I would say.
So what do you guys think?
So if you keep Baltimore, you're giving up your 13th round pick.
Keep Baltimore. I lose my 13th round. And I'm not opposed. Chucks knows this. I've won this league before. I'm not opposed to keeping a defense late in the draft if it's a top defense. Especially if my player keepers aren't that strong. That's see now, Damian, Chuck's can vouch for my ability to do fantasy football. I'm very, very good at fantasy football. And I have kept defenses and won championships before. If your options are don't keep a keeper, or I can just keep the defense at the late in the draft where you're really just drafting your irrelevant players, Mr. Irrelevance or whatever, I'll keep a defense if it's a top ranked defense.
Right.
So defenses will go a lot earlier in this draft. So that's my question to you guys. Do you keep Baltimore's defense, or do you keep David Johnson with the 7th round pick gone?
I would keep Baltimore's defense. It's 13th round is that's the earliest I would go, but with it being 13th round, you're fine.
I mean,
you're absolutely fine.
I would as well. I mean, Chucks was with me when I kept the Panthers defense, and then I won the championship.
Yeah, which defense?
So I had the Panthers defense. That's when they were a top defense.
You're talking about essentially, it's like you're essentially taking them late anyway. I don't see. I was trying to convince myself of it's a running back. It's a starting running back. So take him 8th, but 8th round for David Johnson, who I think is washed up anyway. I think you can find better players in the 8th round than David Johnson.
Or you could find David Johnson again in the 8th round without giving up anything.
Exactly. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only viable player option that I look at in terms of where I would be losing the round. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not going to keep, I'm not going to lose a first rounder for Keenan Allen. I'm not going to lose a second rounder for T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose a third rounder for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, no.
So,
Yeah, I mean,
I don't like to give up high picks.
Nah, I mean, I would question me personally. I would question the Thielen keeper first. I just don't know how good he's going to be, how effective he's going to be without Diggs there. That's just me. Justin Jefferson. I mean, I don't know who else you have. What other options you have?
I'd rather invest in Thielen over David Johnson. To me,
I mean that's not a question at all. That's
Thielen's a 7th round pick. Thielen's going to cost me a 7th round pick. He'll go a lot higher than that.
Yeah, that's worth it.
That's what I'm looking at. Is I look at where they would go, and he would definitely go a lot higher than that. Some of these other guys, not so much. I can keep your boy Breida, Chuck.
I mean, you could do that. That's a long shot, though.
It is a long. Yeah, I'd rather go with just.
I'm kidding. I'm not. I wouldn't keep Breida.
So real quick, so
since
you brought up your keepers, go ahead, Chucks.
Real quick, I forget who asked it, but someone asked me about. Oh, Don asked me what I thought about the Buffalo. Yeah, there you go. The Buffalo running back situation. Devin Singletary. This is me, and I might be in the minority. To me, Devin Singletary is not a feature back. He's not a lead back. They drafted Zach Moss in the 3rd round or something. Yep. To me, by season's end, it's going to be them splitting carries. It's going to be a running back by committee, a duo with them. They complement each other very well. The only question mark is Moss's health. Moss has had to stay healthy, but when he's healthy, he is a good running back, a really good running back, great contact balance. So he knows how to be physical and running in between the tackles, which complements what Devin Singletary does. I do not see Devin Singletary being a lead back in this league. He's a really good complementary back, but I don't think he's a lead back type of guy who can carry that type of workload. So to me, I know a lot of people are buying high on Singletary because they see him as the lead. But I'm telling you, Moss is very talented. If he stays healthy, he's going to get touches. He's going to get touches there.
So my dilemma is real quick. I'm in a 3-team keeper, 10-man league. We've been in the same league since 2010. And is it worth it for me to keep Michael Thomas again at an overall draft value of $46 out of a $210 budget?
$210? Yeah.
My other keepers so far are Miles Sanders at $16 and Chris Godwin at $19. No.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, $46 for arguably the top wide receiver one. I don't know if you can say arguably anymore. Like in fantasy, he gets 500 million receptions. So, is it a PPR league?
Half point. Half point, 2 QB league.
Yeah, I would $46. Yeah, he would be going for a lot more in my league. So yeah, $46 for your wide receiver one, and you have him. You're good. Yeah, I would do that.
Yeah,
and I think
Chris Godwin too.
When I look at keepers and stuff in auction, because I do an auction baseball league, I don't do an auction football league. To me, when you're looking at the value, I mean, you're not giving up a ton of money for your other keepers. So I think that you can afford to roll the dice with a little bit higher if you're not even necessarily totally comfortable with that amount. I think you would be totally fine. I would definitely keep him.
Yeah, agreed. Let's
add it to the spreadsheet.
High upside players. So I try to stay away from the term sleeper because sleeper is so subjective. But just rattle off some guys that you think are high upside guys you get in the middle rounds or late rounds, or in auction you can get for a relatively fair price. Who are some high upside guys you're looking at? To me, I already rattled off one in Kareem Hunt. As a high upside guy, you can get probably for a value cheaper than what an RB1 is going to get you, but he can get RB1 production out of him. So who are some other high upside guys you'd be looking at in your leagues or whatever leagues you're in?
I mean, we just talked about him because we may not trust him, but I would say the person that's in prime position to do that is David Johnson. I mean, in Houston, there's really,
I
I mean,
agree.
that backfield, it's for him to lose. I mean, he's it. I mean, he has a lot to prove. Got the contract, can't stay healthy, change the scenery, got Deshaun Watson now. So I mean, it's a decent offensive line. It's just your coach is crazy as shit. But as I said, as far as running backs, see, it's hard for me to think of a wide receiver that may be a high upside player that's not that's not a rookie though.
Yeah, I
That's
got it.
I mean,
I think John Brown, particularly
yeah,
with Diggs opposite, I think he is now more settled into the wide receiver 2 spot. I think it suits him a little
right,
bit more, and I think that'll create more opportunities for him. You know, I think he's a guy that kind of emerged last year and wasn't on everybody's radar, and I think
right,
he should be more so on people's radar with the arrival of Stephon Diggs. And I think
right.
John Brown has a lot of upside, and Dallas Goedert for the Eagles. I think Dallas Goedert has the potential to have a really big year this year, and I think he's another guy that, you know, we know people kind of reaching. He's probably going to go in Philadelphia drafts anyway. But you know, if you're not from Philadelphia, I would keep my eyes on Dallas Goedert this year. I feel like it's finally going to be the year that we're going to see that next level.
I like that, brother, Christian Kirk. I mean, I'll give you one out of
Yeah.
Cincinnati. I can't remember his name now. Tyler Boyd is another one who I think you may be able to grab it if you're in a snake draft, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th round, or if you're in an auction, maybe get him for like $12, $14, depending on when he gets brought up. If he gets brought up to where people still may not have high quality wide receivers, but then people still have a lot of money, then he'll definitely go for a higher value over that as well. I mean, but as far as it's just escaping me as far as wideouts. I mean, you look at the positions, like somebody, you have to look at teams that are 3 deep, that are 3 deep as far as wide receivers to me, because most number 2s are solidified. I really can't, there's not many number 2s that I see surpassing a number 1 as far as targets and just straight value and production. So you're definitely looking at that 3rd wide receiver that may be able to take that number 2. I mean, all right. Broder he commented Cortland Sutton, but I mean, to me, I expect him to progress. I expect Hollywood Brown to progress. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm pretty sure you have some guys that are maybe a little bit deeper dive than that. So who do you have?
So I've got 2 guys I'll name. Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 rookies. So I mean, in terms of rookies, my number 1 sleeper is Bryan Edwards. Out of, you know, for the Raiders, everyone's talking about Henry Ruggs. Everyone's talking about Henry Ruggs, and yeah, he's great. But Bryan Edwards was slept on in the draft. I believe an injury kind of lowered his draft stock, but man, he's talented. So, but outside of rookies, I've got 2 guys. One is going to be Anthony Miller, who I believe, he's
Chicago, right?
Yeah. Taking him a couple years to kind of get his mindset right, and I've been following him because he was my wide receiver 3 in that 2018 draft behind DJ Moore and Dante Pettis. So I had him at my wide receiver 3, and to me, he's got the talent. He just kind of had to learn how to be a professional, and everything talking about in this I've been hearing in this offseason is that he's finally figured it out. And late last year, he was really starting to produce in that offense late in the year as Taylor Gabriel kind of, fell off. So with Miller, especially if Nick Foles is going to win that job over Trubisky, Anthony Miller could be a very, very sneaky PPR play, slot receiver for the Bears. But my main high upside guy, and I mentioned him last week, is for the Steelers, is Deontay Johnson. This guy, burner, and he made some really great plays for them. A lot of people are pro James Washington, but I was never high on James Washington 2 years ago. I thought he was okay. But Deontay Johnson, to me, is an absolute burner. And as long as Ben Roethlisberger stays healthy as a starting quarterback, his aggressiveness. He loves to throw downfield. he is going to make the most out of Deontay Johnson. And, they still have Juju, but I don't know what to expect out of Juju. Juju could be, I've heard from a lot of beat reporters in Pittsburgh, this is going to be his last year. So they're going to try to, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of not fade him completely out, but they're going to try to get Deontay Johnson to be that, that main deep threat weapon for them. With Juju's going to be in the slot, Deontay Johnson's going to man the Z spot. So I love Deontay Johnson. I think he might be like a boomer bust play each week, kind of like how Deshaun Jackson has been his whole career. But if the weeks that he does boom, you're talking about someone who can get you 20 points or plus a week. I really do believe that.
Martavis Bryant-esque, man. That's what I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Don. I mean, I'm targeting him. I mean, I'll be honest. It's just size, speed, and what the Eagle situation is for Jalen Reagor. I mean, it's there for the taking. I mean, talent wise, I think he's as high as a Jerry Jeudy or others like that. Maybe not, but this is where we talk about the situation, what the team needs of him, what the production the team is looking to get out of Jalen Reagor. Could definitely be worth the while. Definitely could be wide receiver 3 on your team, from draft and start every week until the bye week. I mean, you can see that production, and that's valuable. That's a value because ultimately, you think about it, the Eagles don't have a true number 1 wide receiver. It's there for the taking.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Reagor has been, word out of campus, Rager's been lining up everywhere. So that's whether he's going to play X opposite of Deshaun, who's going to be mainly at Z, or if he's going to be motioned into the slot, or even at Z when Deshaun wants to move into the slot, he's going to get his touches. So I like Reagor as a potential wide receiver 3 on a team, on your fantasy team. I agree. Yusuf asked about Gandy Golden. See, I'm like in the minority. I was never high on Gandy Golden. I think he's okay, but I don't think Gandy Golden is like a star. I don't think he has star potential. I don't think he's that good. Right. He's okay. He's decent. He'll probably, he could have the potential to make a name for himself, in the league as a solid player. But I never bought into him. I think he's okay. But that's me talent wise. KJ Hill, possibly. I know I think Yusuf mentioned Ayuk. Ayuk for San Fran. That's another one to be aware of. The only thing is, I don't know for sure who they like the most in San Fran. Like, they have a bevy of young talent at wide receiver. And I'm being straight up, and you guys know that I follow San Fran very closely. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, they love Debo. That goes without saying. Ayuk, they loved in the draft because Kyle wanted him. They had Ayuk as their wide receiver 1 and wanted to draft him in the middle of that first round. So they love him. But they also have Trent Taylor, who was injured last year, their projected slot receiver. And before he got hurt last year, keep in mind, he was tearing it up at training camp. He was uncoverable. He was easily their best weapon. And this year, I've heard, coming back from the injury, he's doing the same. He's absolutely, tearing it up at training camp again. So he could have a role. I've heard also that Dante Pettis has kind of had a different mindset, and that going into this year, him and Kyle are finally on the same page, and he's no longer in the doghouse, and he's working his tail off. It's unfortunate that Jalen Hurd, not Hurts, Jalen Hurd, the running back turned wide receiver that they drafted last year, he tore his ACL, so he's out. But they have 4 wide receivers right there that they're very high on. So with Ayuk, even though he is their first round pick, he's going to get the benefit of the doubt. But with it being his rookie year, and I think he did get hurt, I think he pulled his hamstring. There's too much uncertainty for me to invest a good amount of money into Ayuk right now, if that makes sense. Like the only wide receiver I have full confidence in right now out of San Fran is maybe Debo, but then also you don't know how long he's going to be out with that injury. So the San Fran wide receiver position is kind of like take your pick. Like throw it up in the air and take your pick. You could pick one of those four, and any of them could have a breakout year. So it's tough to say. It's tough to say for the Niners.
So Chrome Don says he has the Dolphins as a wild card team. So before we get out of here, I think we're up against it. So if we go around one more time, who do we think is, as far as a rookie, whether it could be whatever position, could be quarterback, who do you think is going to have the biggest fantasy impact? And then second year player that may be trending towards that top echelon of early round picks, whether it's a snake draft or high value as far as arguable tier one, whether it be wide receiver or quarterback.
I'll need to think about the second year player, but I could say for me, I'm looking at CeeDee Lamb. I think he's going to have a huge year. I think he's going to have be a focal point in that offense with Dallas. I hate that he had to go there because you guys know I'm really high on him. But I wouldn't shock me if by the end of the year he ends up being their unofficial wide receiver one and puts up a bigger year than Amari Cooper.
Chunks?
Well, reiterate your first question again. It was who was
so any rookie in regards to impact on fantasy, who you think is going to have the biggest impact? Why doesn't matter the position, and then second year player, same thing, doesn't matter the position.
I think it's a tie between Clyde and Jonathan Taylor. I think they both went to a team that is an absolute godly fit for them. Like it couldn't have been in a better situation. And with Jonathan Taylor, I know I talked about before. I don't remember if Chrome was here, but Jonathan Taylor, that behind the offensive line, a guy with his running ability, his vision, his nuance to his running game, it's too easy. It's too easy to see his success. And obviously with Clyde, the same thing. Like so, I wanted to pick a wide receiver. If I'm going to go just wide receiver, to me, it's Pittman. And so that's why I loved what the Colts did early in the draft. Pittman and Taylor, are you kidding me? Like, with wide receiver, to me, I think Pittman's going to be the best rookie wide receiver. The way he complements T.Y. Hilton on the other side, it's phenomenal. And to me, he's going to be what a lot of people think or thought that T. Higgins was going to be. A lot of people were high on T. Higgins because of the size, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you, whatever you think T. Higgins is, if you're high on him, it's going to be Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman didn't get a lot of notoriety pre-draft, but he is a monster. He's got so much size. I think he's going to be really good, really, really good in Indy. So those are my three guys that I'm looking at in terms of rookies. Second-year players, I already said Deontay Johnson. It's hard for me to pick out a running back because last year's running back class was really bad. So like outside of Jacobs and Sanders, those are two. They're easy to say. They're second year running backs. I can't. It's hard for me to pick anyone else that stands out at running back. But wide receiver, I've got Deontay Johnson.
Okay. So tight end. Mm-hmm. We know how deep the tight end can be, but if you happen to miss out on one of those top elite tight ends, if he's healthy, I always look at Hunter Henry as an option there. But if we're looking at second year guys, Noah Fant could be a guy to keep an eye on, especially with all the weapons there in Denver. Could be a guy whose value could increase this year because of the fact that there's going to be more options around him to create more opportunities. So second year guy, kind of getting away from the sexy positions, that's a guy I would look at if you miss out on the top tight ends.
And that makes sense because they added Melvin Gordon. You already had Cortland Sutton emerging. You just added Jerry Jeudy as well. So there's going to be some space for an operator. So that's not a bad choice at all. For me, rookie-wise, I'm going to shock some people right now. I think the biggest fantasy impact and on-the-field impact as well is going to be Tua. I can see Tua being
I like you already.
I can see Tua being up there in the top 10 of QB fantasy rankings. And I mean, if you look at QBs, that's going to put up any more points than any running back or wide receiver. Sleeper pick, though, as far as wide receiver, is a rookie that I think is in a very good situation and team has a lot of offense and is really running the ball. That's Devin Duvernay in Baltimore. I think he's going to have a position to operate in the slot as well. Not being talked about a lot. But obviously, when you have Hollywood Brown on the outside and you had the running back with J.K. Dobbins and you have Lamar Jackson as well, there's going to be some space to operate there. And let's not take away Mark Andrews as well, who's only 23 years old. I did not know that. He's young as shit. And is an emerging top tight end as well. As far as second-year player that I think that can emerge and really be in the top-tier discussion, and I think he's going to be everything that we thought he was going to be, and we saw it last year in the playoffs. I think DK is going to take a huge step forward this year. And if he becomes a man's man, which he already is built like one of it, he's one of those players that if he finds out what he truly is and what he can do, watch out. Where I think he may be, he could be Michael Thomas, but more explosive. And that's scary.
Better than Michael Thomas. Better than Michael Thomas. I don't want to take that as a dig to Michael Thomas.
Right.
And I'm talking about more so real football than fantasy football because, when Michael Thomas, he plays a slot, he goes short passes, he's going to get 5 million receptions a year.
Right.
With DK Metcalf, what he brings to the table in real life football is phenomenal. And it only helps his case the fact that the guy opposite him is a stud himself in Tyler Lockett, who has developed into one of the more underrated wide receivers too. So they've got weapons there. Just, damn it, Pete Carroll, just pass the ball. Stop running it so damn much.
Yeah.
Pass the damn ball. But
I'm petitioning Russell Wilson for MVP before he fucking retires because he deserves it.
At least a vote, right?
At least a vote.
I love also second-year player. You talk about Metcalf. I think Terry McLaurin's ceiling is really, really high. Mm-hmm. Man, he's just good. I know if you guys – I'm pretty sure you guys know Fran Duffy, who works in media for the Eagles.
Yeah,
all the bigger stuff. He made a comp to McLaurin, and he sees a lot of Antonio Brown in him. And I don't hate that comp. And I see McLaurin is really good. His nickname does suit him, a Scary Terry. So I really, really like that comp, and I think he also takes another step forward. For tight ends, by the way, we hardly talked about tight ends. Another sleeper, using sleeper, but another Pittsburgh guy, Eric Ebron, went to the Steelers, and it's just like, man, that makes sense.
His hands, though, he has to catch it, man.
He's not catch it. That Ben, he will. So I think what I've seen out of Eric Ebron post Detroit, I've really liked. I think Eric Ebron is good tight end now. He's become dependable. So I
late bloomer.
Yes, late bloomer. I like him there in Pittsburgh, and I think he can be someone you can get for cheap or later in the round. And again, he could produce for you, get you around 10 points a week.
That's what you need.
Safe in the tight end spot. So I like it. All right,
you
boys.
got TJ Hawkinson in Detroit real quick. Once again, Don. Darrell Bevell is the problem, and your head coach doesn't know what direction he wants to go in. Until I see it, I can't ride with it. Because trust me,
I'm a Hawkinson guy, man. I
drafted him last year, and then
did I.
He got hurt, right? Yeah, I drafted him.
He got hurt, and it just the direction. One week the offense was this, 1 week the offense was that. It had no flow to it. So you just in the fantasy, you need some trends to build off of.
Yeah, he's got talent. I like me some TJ Hawkinson as well. All right, boys. Anything else before we head out for tonight?
Nah, man. This is probably the most excited I've been for football. Like tonight made it like real. You know what I mean? It made it like, okay, we were talking about fantasy, okay, and then got juiced up as we were on, man. So I can't wait.
It's so weird because for me with fantasy, like when it's spring and early summer, like I don't get into it. Like it's my mindset's like not into it, so it's hard for me, especially like with me, like with Pete. In my league now, we have to be on top of things like almost all year round. Like May is when we start really discussing like, all right, we got to have our council meeting. We got to talk about rule changes and everything like that. So we got to be on top of it almost all year. But it's hard for me mindset-wise. But once it gets rolling to our draft time, like late August, that draft is really like the oh man, it's coming. So I'm really excited. Pete, we have our draft on Sunday, barring my son deciding to come out Decides to come out on Sunday, that'll postpone it. But other than that, we have our draft Sunday. Chrome, I don't know when yours are, and Pete, I don't know when you got the rest of your leagues. But man, it's exciting and definitely good luck
Yes,
to
it
you.
is.
Maybe I'm the opposite. I am usually juiced this time of year, and I have one league that's definitely going. I don't even know if we're doing the other league.
Right.
It's a keeper league, and usually that's the one that we do the Eagles draft night and draft it at the link. So I'm like extremely disappointed we're not going to do that this year.
Right.
My other draft, it's always in person. We're doing it remotely. I'm just not excited about it. I don't even know that I believe they're even going to get through. Miami is allowing fans, guys. The Dolphins are allowing fans and
Wow.
Hurricanes. So tell me if I believe we're even going to get past weeks 6 to 8. Probably not. So I'm having a real hard time, especially, I look at it now. I thought maybe I'd get a little more pumped because I decided to do one fantasy baseball league, and I looked at it for a week, and I was just like, I feel like this is, once guys started getting COVID, I'm like, yeah, I'm not into this. So I hope, it was fun to talk about, so I hope that I get a little more jazzed up once this thing starts, but I'm not expecting myself to get too pumped up for it. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
No.
Yusuf does have a good question before we head out. He says, was Schwartz's defense last season a man-to-man defense? I'm asking because Jack Del Rio's is a zone defense, and Darby said he struggled in his scheme. He struggled in Schwartz's scheme, not Del Rio's. The staff is excited about Darby. Let me tell you this. For one,
I gotta change things with you guys, by the way. I have a question after this. Go ahead.
Okay. For one, Schwartz is a mainly cover 3 defense, but he does play a lot of man compared to the rest of the league. So in terms of like comparing it to what the rest of the league does, the Eagles were up there in terms of man coverage snaps, which when we got Darby from Buffalo, that was supposed to be his strong point. His strength was supposed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, wasn't Darby the thing that was looked at him as a strong suit was his ability to cover man to man.
Yes.
But he got here, and it wasn't so much that he sucked at it. It was more so the fact that it's the mental lapses in assignment when it comes to a lot of those things that he struggled at. He did not grasp that system. And so is he telling the truth? Yeah, he struggled in Schwartz's scheme. But that scheme was man to man, but it's not like in zone coverage he was any better. In either scenario, he had so many reps where he just the mental capacity, the mental processing wasn't there. He's got the speed, he's got the physical ability, but if you don't know what you're doing, you're not processing what you're doing, you're not going to be successful as a corner, no matter where you play and no matter what type of coverage. So, I'm glad the staff is saying they're excited about Darby, but I'm being completely objective as possible, but just be cautious about your expectations with Darby. He has a tendency to show up one week, but then he'll let you down another week with some really, really bad plays. But Chrome, what were you saying?
Okay. So I wasn't sure, which is why I didn't bring these up. This is a game changer now for this third keeper. But I thought that we took off the board that you can keep guys that weren't drafted, but apparently you can. So that's totally different, and I lose a 15th round pick if I keep one of these guys. So, my two most logical names on my list would either be John Brown or Raheem Mostert. So, maybe John Brown? 15th round pick.
15th round pick.
Yeah.
Mostert, if he hits again, he's giving you RB1 type production.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mostert has he's like the biggest question mark, I think, in this season in the running backs.
See,
because
that's the thing I worry about, though. I don't like question marks with keepers.
Here's the thing. With Mostert, like what Pete said, and all signs do kind of lead to him keeping that job because if the Niners didn't want him back, they wouldn't have paid him. They wouldn't have restructured his contract, but they did. And also, Mostert has beefed up, added strength so that he can take on more of the workload as a lead back. So I would go Mostert because if you hit on him and if he does maintain that job, he is going to be like a top 5 running back in the league. He is going to be potentially like that could be a league winner. To get him in the 15th round, to me, that upside and that reward for keeping Mostert heavily outweighs the reward of keeping John Brown. I would absolutely go Mostert over Brown.
Second that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Yusef.
Yeah.
And prayers goes out to Ron Rivera and his family, just diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah, that's sad. So prayers out to him. Anything? Oh yeah, Yusuf. Yeah, thank you so much for that. You know, Mary wants this baby out so bad, and we're trying to do whatever we can. We're trying to walk and everything to get him out. The official due date is September 4th, so that's next Friday. I've been saying September 2nd so that he can be born on Westbrook's birthday, and they can share a birthday. So I'm aiming for September 2nd, but we'll see. If this is my final show for a few weeks, then good luck to everyone. Hope you enjoy football season as it starts. Good luck in your fantasy drafts. If I'm here next week, I'll definitely I'll see you guys next week. But thank you so much, everyone, for reaching out. Anything else, guys, on the docket before we head out?
No, man. That's it.
I mean, other than the fact that Plexico Burris now has an OnlyFans page. That's interesting. Other than that, have a great night, everybody. Yeah, Ryan.
I have one question.
I have a lot of questions if it's about the Plexico Burris.
No. If I dive into that, it's going to be another 2 hours of questions. My question is for Pete and Chucks. And this goes back to a few weeks ago when I was vacation brodo, and we had an interesting conversation about Derek Barnett and Sidney Jones. And a few individuals talked about how they were more confident in Sidney Jones than Derek Barnett, and even said that it wasn't close. My question is, given Jim Schwartz's most recent comments
about Vontae Maddox,
Sidney Jones hasn't been able to show what he's capable of because he can't stay healthy, and that the clock is ticking, and everything that falls in that category. My question is, do you still share that same sentiment?
Well, let's be
yes,
clear.
It's talent.
I talked about upside. I didn't say that as of right now, Sidney Jones is the better player. I said if I'm going to look at upside, I think Sidney Jones has more upside. But Derek Barnett is the better player right now because we don't have Sidney Jones has not been reliable. I never. You can go back to the tape. I said I would pick Barnett as the better player right now than Sidney. And so when it comes to Schwartz's comments, he was very complimentary of Devontae Maddox with I've been saying Devontae Maddox is going to win that CP2 job. So I've been on point with that. And when it comes to Sidney, it doesn't surprise me that he's again struggling with injuries. Has nothing to do with talent. It has to do with his injuries. So that doesn't surprise me whatsoever. It's unfortunate.
Here's the thing,
it's absolutely unfortunate.
How long are we going to make talent the excuse, though?
But it's not even an excuse. The whole argument and debate a few weeks ago was about reliability. I don't care how talented you are if you can't get on the damn field. How much talent can you have sitting on the couch?
I don't disagree.
Yep.
I don't disagree.
It's a fair point.
I agree with that point. Yeah, I didn't disagree with that point.
So listen, we're all rooting for the kid, but
I feel like you're trying to get.
What? Say it again.
I feel like you were trying. You thought we argued a certain point when we actually didn't. Like I totally hear you when it comes to Sidney. He hasn't been reliable because of injuries and mental toughness. I said that. So in no way would I rely on Sidney Jones over Derek Barnett right now.
So
It's just all I said was when Pete brought up potential and what they, in an ideal scenario, what they could be. I said I can understand where he's coming from because I always thought Sidney Jones had higher potential than Derek Barnett, even back in the draft. That was my point. But right now, as it stands, Derek Barnett is what he is, and he's absolutely more reliable than Sidney. And that's shown.
It's amazing too, because if you go back and you hit the Google machine and you really start looking up both of these guys, you don't see a whole lot about Sidney Jones. But man, I can find
not
the
Google machine.
6 or 7 articles with quotes from Brandon Graham and a lot of the different writers and different people talking about that they believe that healthy. This is poised to be the Derek Barnett breakout year and hit the next level. But you don't see any of that about Sidney Jones anywhere.
But once again, I think we're getting off topic.
Brandon Graham raving about Derek Barnett and thinks that we're going to get big things from him this year.
You know who else is good at getting rave reviews out of camp, though? Josh Sweat. Everyone is talking about how Josh Sweat looks like he's ready to break out this year, too, and how he looks phenomenal, like a freak of nature. So, I mean, I get your point about Barnett, but Sweat has looked good. That's another point I made is Sweat could
conversation wasn't about Sweat though. It was about.
But I'll make it about Sweat. I'll take the bait. Chucks, going back 3 weeks then, if we're gonna make it about Sweat, why did you then rate a kicker above him in your top 5 under 25 list? I heard no mention of Sweat.
Yeah, because we were talking about what they were at that point. If I'm talking about upside, I'm talking about potential, but potential is one thing. But if you're talking about where I'd rank them right now, what they have shown, of course Jake Elliott has shown more than Josh Sweat. Like Josh Sweat hasn't done much besides show some development last year. He hasn't done much. So I can't base a ranking off of potential or what I believe they could do. I was going off of when I made that ranking of top players under 25 and under, I was going off of what they have shown so far. And go ahead back to the day of the show. I did not put Sidney or Sweat above Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett was higher. So I was being fair there. I don't hate Barnett. I'm just saying I believe his ceiling is not as high as a lot of people make it out to be just because he was a first-round pick. Just because he was a first-round pick doesn't mean he has elite potential. I think Derek Barnett, and I said this since he was drafted, has the potential to be a really good defensive end in the league. Maybe a 1 or 2 time Pro Bowler. That was always my projection, and I've stuck with it. I think he can be really, really good. I don't think he can be great or elite or anything. That's my whole point.
I echo the same thing. Like we didn't base it off of what they've done on the field. At least I didn't. Anyway, I was just basing off purely if apples were the apples, no injuries, just their pure talent. I think Sidney has a higher ceiling. That was where I was basing it off of. I mean, and once again, not to knock Derek Barnett, but I mean, are we all confident in the fact that Derek Barnett could be the number 1 defensive end on his team? I mean, I'm not. So that's not taking, and I'm surely as hell is not confident that Sidney Jones could be the number 1 corner on this team because he hasn't shown he can be reliable. But if we take the context of the question,
I'm not confident right now that Sidney Jones could be the CB3 right now with the way
he can't. He can't if he can't get on the field.
Well, considering that we have Nickel Roby Coleman, Darius Slay, and Devontae Mack starters, no way in hell is he CB3. No way in hell is he CB3.
But I'm saying talent considered, I still don't think he could be at the CB3 right now.
Pete,
even if you think Sidney Jones is 100% healthy as he was coming out of Washington, you still
he'll never be 100% healthy.
But he's not. That's the kicker.
He'll never be 100% healthy.
But see, that's where we differ. I'm basing it off 100% health.
His ceiling isn't as high as it was 4 years ago. It's come down. And when you can't stay on the field and you're not healthy and you're getting older, it comes down more and more. At least Barnett has, other than, he's stayed more healthy. I will say that. He hasn't been healthy, but he's been more healthy. for the most part. And he's shown us much more. And, I mean, you want to throw Sweat, all these guys more. I have no belief in Sidney Jones anymore. And I tried to do what everybody here has done and give the guy the benefit of the doubt. I don't think he's going to be anything at this point. Maybe a guy who could play in garbage time, but I don't think he's going to. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope I eat my words. I don't think I will.
I'll put it to you this way. And again, I'll preface this if I haven't made it clear to the people at home, because I'm sure and same with Chrome, I'm sure we come across as Sidney Jones haters, but I like the kid. I was excited about the pick when we made the pick back in 2016.
Loved it.
2017.
It was the right pick.
Yes. So, there's no hindsight 2020. Going back, I like the pick. I had faith in him coming into last year. But given everything we know now, with what the situation is, with what the coaches are saying, all the way down to the coordinators, Pete, to your point, to your question, and this might sound crazy, I'm more confident that Derek Barnett could be a legitimate number one defensive end in this league, and especially for the team, than I am that Sidney Jones could even make the friggin' roster.
Agreed.
And that's not because of talent. That's not because I'm a hater of the kid. It's just because you could be a Hall of Fame caliber player, but if you're spending 9 months out of the year at home on the couch and the other 3 months in the hospital bed, I'm never going to see that talent.
I can't.
I don't disagree. That's
I know.
That's funny. We don't disagree with that. We agree. He's not reliable because he's always hurt. So I don't.
But my issue with the point that you guys make, and maybe if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. It's pretty clear. Is you keep talking about this ceiling as if the ceiling is still the same, and it's not. It's not even close to that because there's so much mileage on a body that's barely been on a football field that I think that we're still evaluating his ceiling the same way we did years ago when he was drafted, and he was already hurt then. And that's my issue, is that I don't think his ceiling's anywhere close to what people think it is. Not even close. And I'm at a point now with Sidney Jones. And again, I want to be wrong. If he has it in him, I really hope he does show it this year because I want it. Because if he is as good as we think he is, he's an amazing talent. Why wouldn't I want him? I just don't think he is. I'm at the point now, I'm this close to Nelson Aguilar's status. Not in that I was a Nelson hater, and I was right for hating on Nelson, by the way. But I'm not hating on him, but I'm this close to the point of where I want to see him gone just to stop hearing his name. That's how close I am.
And that's
so to me, it's
that's
this
fair.
year or you're done. I'm not in the hate way, not in the hate way I have for Aguilar, but I'm sick of hearing his name. I'm sick of hearing about ceilings on a guy that can't get on the football field.
So
Damage goods coming in, and he's even gotten way more damage since then.
The thing is, what's funny is the middle of last season, after that horrible game in Minnesota, he was hurt, but again, you can't stay healthy. I was ready to give up on him after last year, but because of those splash plays he made at the last month of the year, that's when I was like, okay. I mean, his price is going to be really cheap. It's not going to hurt to keep him on the roster. It's not like we're paying him $5 million. So let's give him one more year. That's the only reason why I'm not I'm done with him, because he showed flashes of ability that he could do something. But I agree, no more excuses for Sidney. I've said that. No more excuses. Yeah, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's mental toughness. I don't care if it's health, injuries. I don't care. I don't care if he has a stubbed toe. He has to show. He has to produce and play. And if he doesn't, he's out of here. And so I don't disagree with your point. And to your point about you're not rooting against him, that's how I feel about Barnett. Why wouldn't I want Barnett to be great? If he turns out to prove me wrong, awesome, because then I can look back on the 2017 draft and not have any regrets about the Eagles taking him, over guys that I wanted. I don't want that to be the case. I want him to be great. I would love him to be, because if he's great, that means we got our DE of our defensive end of the next several years because we're going to re-sign him. And then 2, that probably means our defensive line is hands down the best defensive line in the whole freaking league. So I would absolutely want that. So I don't think myself or Pete were ever trying to give the notion that we hate Derek Barnett. I'm just trying not to be a homer. I'm not saying you guys are. I'm just trying not to be a homer and hype up every single first-round pick or every single starter on this team. I'm trying to be objective and say, okay, like Derek Barnett hasn't shown elite ability, so maybe he has reached close to what his potential is, and he is close, pretty much what it is. But I never said he sucked. He's not. He doesn't suck.
Right.
He's a solid/good player that I'm glad to have on this team. I don't agree with some people that think he can be a star. That's all I'm saying.
This is my last contribution to this because I know we're way past the time. But what I will say is this.
Thanks, Ryan.
You're
welcome.
I will take a guy, okay, a guy who can get on the football field. I will give opportunities to. I will be open-minded and continue to give him an opportunity as long as he's on the football field. I don't fanboy, and I will not fanboy for a guy who for 4 years hasn't been able to step on the football field. Bottom line, end of story. You lose the benefit of the doubt for me. And again, to me, it's just a classic case of people fall in love. In this city, people fall in love with potential. And that's what drives me crazy. We fall in love with the potential of a guy, not what we're seeing. And I think because of that, we lose sight of things. Everything falls into the peripheral instead of seeing what's in front of you, seeing what we have. We have a track record at 4 years. I'm not talking 1 or 2 years. We have a track record now at this point with Sidney Jones. With Derek Barnett, he's been on the football field. He contributed heavily, even if it was just in spots, to a Super Bowl team. He showed in the half the season he did play before he got hurt, that he was the best defensive player that we had at that point up until he got hurt. He's shown that he can be that guy consistently on that basis. Last year wasn't good, down year. He's got a lot to prove this year. I will give him that benefit of the doubt. I will not give benefit of the doubt to a guy who cannot step on the football field. He lost it. It's done, and that's the bottom line for me with him.
And that's fair.
Fair enough.
I don't fall in love with potential.
No, it's once again, I based it off of the context that the ceiling is as if they were coming out of the draft, no injuries, nothing like that. The way Chrome you present it, you're looking at the here and now, and I perceive the question to be top 25, no injuries, just talent for talent, as if they were 100%. And with that being said,
and you can't do that. You know what I mean? That's why I can't.
You can't do that. I can do whatever the fuck.
You can't do that with a question of who is the top 25 under 25, and we're talking about them right now. Who's the top 25 on the 2020 Philadelphia Eagles, or who's the top, 5 players? 25 and under on the 2020 Philadelphia Eagles. You got to go by 2020.
I put him on the list.
Where we're at in 2020.
Put higher on that list. I think Pete was just doing a hypothetical, just like, okay, sidebar.
You lose the benefit of the doubt on a hypothetical from 4 years ago.
We're talking about one thing.
A 4-year-old hypothetical. If 4 years ago he never got hurt, and 4 years of a track record of getting hurt and not getting on the football field, never happened. Who are you taking? There's a lot of players I could take. A lot of guys I would take over all of them.
It's a conversation that we have a lot where people talk about, Grant Hill.
Well, here's the problem, Chuck. So we're going to do this going forward. Let's not take interpretation let's not leave things open for interpretation. There has to be a set thing. If injuries are factored in, we're talking injuries. If we're going to have this, instead of you having a different view of the question and Pete having a different view, it creates fun arguments like this. But at the same,
what the show is about?
It does. But at the same time, it never makes any sense in the end of it, because we can't say let's talk about the top 25 or 25 and under players in 2020 and factor 4 years out. You can't do that.
That's fine.
It's-
And
So we have to set guidelines when we pose the question.
There's no such thing as a 4-year hypothetical, guys.
we didn't. Well, we didn't. Like we in my
You just told us you did.
We gave two lists.
On my
Two
list,
lists.
I had Barnett.
Oh.
I don't know what. I don't like. I can send it. I can email the list. I had Barnett higher. I literally did, and I think I'm pretty sure Pete did too.
This is more geared towards Pete, who just told me I'm looking at it like the 4-year injury history never happened. That's who I'm going after here, Chuck.
Oh, what?
But you're defending him, so now you're making me go after you too.
List
But it
A,
shouldn't be.
list
You
A was
shouldn't be, because Chuck's
hypothetical.
is talking about, Pete's talking about a 4-year hypothetical and saying it never happened. You can't. You can't make a hypothetical out of a 4-year history.
What you mean? That's what sports shows happen all the time.
He can do what he wants.
You can't take 4 years of injury history out. You can't. You could say, hey, if he never got hurt last year, what might have been? That's a hypothetical. To say if he never got hurt coming out of college, and in 4 years he's still on the football field, you can't do that. You can't do that in ranking the top 25 players under 25.
Pete,
You just can't logically do that.
Pete, I love you, but that's like saying, hey, I predict Andrew Luck is going to be the MVP in 2020 if he didn't retire. He freaking retired.
That's like saying if I would have lifted weights when I was 18, let's just factor in the other 17 years of my life. If I would have stuck with lifting weights, I might be the greatest WWE champion ever. And because of my potential for it, I am the greatest champion ever. You sound like David Roska at this point, talking about he's the WWE champion.
Oh,
that's what you sound like, Pete.
That's cold.
So you could go shoot if you want. Once again, for the 15th time, if you listen, I've had two lists. I had a hypothetical and I had an actual.
Well,
the same thing. And Barnett was higher on the actual list.
Stop it. There's no hypothetical taking 4 years of history out. That list shouldn't even exist. If that's a real thing, that list should be burned.
What? It was like 4 weeks ago. At least my internet doesn't drop out. So I mean, I'm here.
That's true. Here it is. That's us burning the list.
So here we go. Perfect question. Who has more potential? The kid, the internet drops out, or who's reliable, who's here almost every week?
Oh, it's you, obviously. And that's not going on a hypothetical, by the way. That's going on factoring everything in at this point.
Bro, were you listening at all to the beginning of the show with what?
No, I got to go back and listen.
Suck it up 1 year and go out and get somebody decent versus suffering, signing Cam just as a Band-Aid. That's not really a Patriot thing to do, just to fill a gap. They'd rather have that next man up mentality. I don't think Cam is a locker room type guy. Maybe a wardrobe guy, but the Patriots, they already got their hoodies. They don't need nobody there. So I don't think he's a guy to build anybody up, in a presence like they had within Brady or, you name it on the offense. So I just don't think it's, organizationally wise, the direction that they would want to go.
Brodo made that because right before the show I tagged you guys in a post because Belichick was praising Cam and how he's studying hard and spending extra time learning the offense. And I said, wait, Kevin, Cam isn't. I thought you said Cam isn't a Patriots type of player and he wouldn't fit into the Patriot way. And Kevin commented saying, I never said that.
Oh.
I tagged Brodo and Brodo made that.
Footage never lies.
I literally told him in the comments, I'm like, honey, you've got a big time storm coming for you. You've got a hurricane coming right at you. And he didn't listen, so I had to show him.
That's
Hurricane
amazing.
Cameron.
So great. Oh my God. I feel
good
bad.
talk, guys.
I feel bad he's not here. So I mean we'll do it next time when he's here. But guys, another really, really great fantasy football show. It's an awesome show whenever we have it every year. To all the listeners that chimed in and is still listening at 2.5 hours long, thank you so much for chiming in. Your questions, your comments, advice, and everything in terms of fantasy football was phenomenal. We appreciate everyone tuning in. You guys are the reason why we're here, so thank you for all that you do and all your support. not only for our show, but for the whole lineup of A2D. You know, we have the Fix and AM and the PM tomorrow on Wednesdays. We've got Lazy Booking and Hockey Happy Hour on Thursdays, on the Road to Victory on Fridays, Kicking It Stateside, weekly roundup at In This Very Ring on the weekends, along with Agree to Disagree, the flagship on Sunday nights. And then we have Sports Hounds on Mondays. Thank you so much, guys.
Quick programming note, too, Chucks.
Yeah.
No lazy booking this week. Flyers game 3 on Thursday night. I'm going to hop on Hockey Happy Hour with those guys. We're going to do the entire game live reaction.
That's awesome.
So
definitely
make sure you guys check that out. That's going to be a lot of fun. And by the way, go Flyers. We need a big win tomorrow. 3 o'clock tomorrow, we need a win.
Bounce back and win tomorrow. Again, guys, we are always on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Twitch, and the whole 9 on social media all over the internet. Thank you to our sponsors, Paul Vidal of Specialized Physical Therapy. Thank you to Ambuck Services Gutter Cleaning, to QB54, and to Philly Drinkers, who make all of our A2D merchandise. Go on there for the QB Factory shirt. Use promo code A2D to get 25% off of that shirt. And again, guys, good luck in your fantasy shows. I've got a new Miles Sanders shirt. Head up 500 level to get your new merchandise. And also runmilesrun.com has Miles Sanders official merchandise. So get his stuff there, as well as your A2D merchandise on Philly Drinkers. Again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Chrome, Pete, I will talk to you guys next week, and hopefully we will see Kevin next week. But if I don't, you guys will know where I will be. I will be in
Good luck, buddy.
With the baby.
Good luck, buddy.
Guys. All right. For myself and the rest of us at A2D and Birds of a Feather, have a good night.
Peace.